Thank you for your patience. We want to make sure everybody got an opportunity to sit down and get comfortable since we had a line at the front of the room here. For anybody who has not had a chance, please note that there are speaker cards up at the front at the green table. So if you did come here with the intention to speak and have not filled out a card, please go ahead and do that, and then you can hand off the card to Richard there, who is waiting. So we do have some normal order to go through this evening before we get to that item, but it is that I'm assuming all of you have come here this evening to participate in, and we just want to say thank you for attending, for coming, and for sharing and giving input for your respective organizations or causes. With that, I am going to call the meeting to order and ask, I already called it to order, but I'm going to ask Paul Freeborn to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we do roll call, please?
Director Avila?
Here.
Director Gettert?
Here.
Director O'Brien? Here. Vice Chair Freeman? Here. And Chair Gray?
Present. Thank you. Item 3 is agenda review.
Chair, staff has no changes to the agenda. I did want to note a couple of items. Staff distributed a supplemental this afternoon. There's a copy of it on the podium and on the dais in front of you. It's a letter from Simi Valley Little League related to item 9A this evening. And then secondly, I wanted to note that staff will have a recommended suggested change to the minutes when you get to that item. That concludes staff's review of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And the only other bit I would note for all of the folks in attendance this evening is we will, before item 9A, we'll probably call a quick recess, assess all of the speaker cards that Richard is diligently working on organizing right now, so we can break down exactly how we can make sure we hear from everybody this evening and everybody gets a fair opportunity to share. Other than that, that will take us to item 4, which is public statements for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So anybody who has come this evening to share anything regarding the district's proposed draft preliminary budget for next year, this would not be the time to speak. This is for anything that is not on the agenda. So is there anybody who would like to make a public statement? Yes, sir.
I'm not aware it's on the agenda, but I'm here requesting.
We come to the podium and thank you.
Hi, my name is Art Spiteri, and I live on Orchid Avenue. I'm here to request that the picnic tables that were taken out of Throwood Park, approximately, I don't know, 11 or 14 of them, with the trash cans, and at a barbecue pit, when they put in the skate ring, they were still there, and about 6 months later, they removed them. And I went to see Dan. I can't pronounce your last name, I'm sorry. Okay? And he at that time, he said, within 6 months, Art, we'll have them back. We just having some problems, which I was aware of, some drug involvement was going on. And now it's over a year, we're going close to 2 years, and I'd like to see if it's possible. I'm expecting great grandkids. I raise my kids there, my grandkids in the park. You can't go even where the young kids play, the playground for your little children. We had tables there underneath that little gazebo. They took everything out, including the one that they put up by the skating ring itself. There was tables in there. They took out everything. The only place you could sit up is by the parking lot. We have a beautiful park that's provided by Laurel, and I've been living in my house about 42 years. And it would be nice to enjoy the park for the neighbors. My friend with me is a neighbor also. He just became a grandfather, and I have another neighbor next door. They have, grandchildren, and we can't really enjoy the park. I want to know why the tables and trash cans can be put back. That's all.
Thank you. Dan, are we able to address that right now, or do we have anybody
Yeah,
else?
thank you, Chair. I appreciate the comment, and we'll get with the planning division and see what the status is of putting the tables back after we built the skate park. So I will look into that, and
I appreciate it.
yep,
man.
thank you for coming.
Thank you. Any other public statements for an item that is not on the agenda this evening? Not seeing anybody on Zoom unmute themselves either. So we will continue with the meeting, which takes us to item 5, approval of minutes for the May 3rd, 2023 meeting. Any board questions?
Chair, if I could, it was pointed out to me that regarding the item when we were talking about the Oak Park Committee meeting follow-up, there was a discussion regarding the items that were voted on by the committee, and the minutes didn't capture the direction of the board at the time. So bear with me if I could. I'd like to have the board entertain an addition to the minutes that would go something like, following discussion by consensus, the board supported the committee's recommendation regarding pickleball line colors and prohibited fishing at the Oak Park Lagoon. The minutes didn't really, there was a lot of discussion there, but it wasn't in a succinct place where we did that, we took that action by consensus to staff. So.
I agree that we did by consensus, which means the majority of us agreed. Could we just add a sentence to that? Director Denner disagreed on fishing.
Sure, if the board's okay with that.
And on the fishing, Director Ogwood did not take a position.
Okay. We will add that as well.
Yeah, I think you have a consensus. Is there any public comment on this item for the agenda minutes from May 3rd? Okay, not seeing any. Any other board comment? All right, do we want to vote?
Yeah. I'll move for approval as amended.
Thank you.
Second. Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
And Chair Gray?
Aye. Thank you. That takes us to item 6, consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull an item to discuss?
Yes, Chair, I would like to briefly, for several questions, I'd like to have item 6B removed.
We will do that. Are there any other items anybody on the board would like to discuss? Okay, then
Protocol would be to go ahead and move approval of 6A, C, and D, and then come back to item D.
would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Could you do roll call, please?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Dennert?
Yes.
Director O'Brien? Yes. Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes.
And Chair Gray?
Aye. So, discussion of item 6B. Receive and, oh, sorry. Receive and file Proposition 4, appropriations limitation.
All right, I just had a few questions for Teresa on this, if I could. Teresa, on the on attachment C,
Yes.
I want to on the row that discusses carryover from prior year. For Oak Park assessment, it lists an amount over 200,000, and Racine Valley assessment an amount that's slightly under 500,000. What do those numbers represent?
Those are the estimated carryovers as we prepare the 23-24 budget. They're still estimates at this point, and they'll be firmed up once the fiscal year closes. But in each of those funds, there were some projects that were not completed. For example, vehicles that were budgeted in the amount of $224,000, and we just, due to supply issues, were unable to purchase them. And in Oak Park, there are a couple maintenance projects, bike path resurfacing, and a repair of the exterior wall at the community center. So those projects will be rolled over into the new fiscal year.
Okay, on the, in essence, what the carryover amount represents is money that was collected from the assessment that was not used during the year. Is that right?
as of this date. So these are projections through June 30th of this year. So there could be a change, but right now it's an estimate.
And we briefly discussed this earlier. In terms of the purchase of equipment in Sini Valley, what kind of amount are we talking about? Would that represent if there was supply that would have been spent?
The amount budgeted for vehicles was $224,000, and we were able to spend $48,000 of that. We were able to buy one truck.
So that would leave under $200,000 left when the supply for the vehicles left would be to spend on the vehicles.
Yes.
And that would then still leave a carryover of about $300,000 on the Sini Valley assessment. Is that right?
Right, and then there was an amount of $25,000 that was budgeted for maintenance, and to date that hasn't been expended. Like I said, it could be in the next month and a half, but to date that has not been spent.
Right. So taking that out, it would leave about $275,000.
That sounds about right.
Okay. And then the other area I wanted to ask you about, where under the row where it says interest, for the Oak Park assessment, there's an amount of $3,900. For the Sini Valley assessment, $6,400. That's interest being earned on the essentially the money that wasn't spent, the carryover money.
That's a projected interest for fiscal year 23-24. So yes, any funds that there's a balance in a fund, we're earning interest on that.
And just to distinguish that from the interest being earned from the general fund, and just to clarify, the general fund would be the money that we're receiving from the state for property taxes from local property owners. Is that, property owners throughout the state, but money that's being paid as taxes by property owners, that's our allocation from the state.
As it relates to this report, yes.
Right, okay. And the interest that's being earned on that, as to distinguish from a carryover amount, that's interest that's being earned because obviously our general fund is our main fund, and it's got a cash flow situation, so there's going to be money in the account, so that's the interest that we're earning from that.
Yes, and there would typically be a fund balance at any given point in Fund 30 as well. We get 2 main payments a year for those funds, but we're paying electricity every month out of that fund. So ideally there'd be some money sitting there for us to pay those bills.
But not ideally $275,000 or $480,000 as the case may be. Is that right?
Well, I guess it's a matter of perspective. Right. So yes, there's funds. Those funds are budgeted for specific things.
Right. Thank you, Chair.
Any other board questions? Do I have a motion to approve item 6B?
It's a file and receive. I don't think we.
I do need approval to run the legal.
Because it was on the consent agenda and we approved everything else.
I will make that motion.
I'll second. Can we do roll call?
Could we, hold on.
Yes.
Don't we need, I think because you pulled it and you talked about it, I think we need to ask if there's public comment first.
Thank you for the correction. Is there any public comment on this item? Not seeing any, not hearing any?
I just
believe-
want to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
It's a receive and file. Why do we need a motion on it?
Well, didn't you pulled it from the consent agenda, didn't you?
Right, but it's a receive and file item. I mean, if we had a regular item on the agenda that was receive and file.
Yeah, there's 2 separate items on this evening's agenda related to the topic. One is to present the report, and the other one is authorizing the release of the note of publication to the newspaper, which is, I believe, is the item after this one.
I
So
see.
Director
Oh, my
Avalon,
apologies.
We've already done the
you've
other.
already done that, so I don't know that you need, if it is a reasons file, you don't need to do anything on this item.
Yeah,
Because
correct.
you've
I'm sorry.
approved the publication of the notice on the next item.
I was confusing it with the other item.
Oh,
Thank you.
perfect. So we are good, and that will take us to item 7, presentation scheduled items and public hearings, which there is none this evening. Which takes us to item 8, continuing business, which there is none this evening. Which takes us to item 9, new business. Discussion and direction regarding the district's proposed draft preliminary budget for fiscal year 23-24, including the district's 5-year capital improvement plan. At this time, I'm going to take a short break.
Just a break, yeah.
a very short break to organize the speaker notes. Thank you for your patience. All right, thank you everybody. We are going to return from our break, so if everybody could take your seats. Thank you again to everybody who came this evening. Just for board awareness, we have a total of 22 speaker cards on 11 different topics. Unless anybody on the board has a concern, that would take any public comment to just over an hour, which I think is a reasonable amount of time. So we would, my instinct is to keep to the natural 3 minutes per speaker that we customarily have done.
I am okay with that. I just had one thought that came into my mind, and that is whether any of the people on Zoom are going to want to speak, which would add time to that.
Alex, how many, we've got 12 folks on Zoom. Let me take a peek here, Chair. Alex, and it looks like most of those are staff. Most of those are staff, yeah. So you might have a couple on there, but not many more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that clarified then, for everyone in the audience who filled out a speaker card, we will call you in the order of the speaker cards that I was given. They're generally organized by subject matter, and we would ask per speaker, and staff will give you a notice as you are approaching your 3-minute limit, but we would ask that to be respectful of everybody's time here. If you do not need your full 3 minutes, please don't take it, or yeah, that would be appreciated. But staff will let you know as you are approaching the 3-minute limit. Beyond that, is there anybody on the board want to share any specifics, or should we jump into the staff report?
When we got the questions, I was going to maybe share a couple things unless you want me to do it now.
Let's do it till after the report,
Yeah.
so it's fresh in everybody's mind. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Dan Pernick, District Manager. Just want a little background and a little protocol. Tonight's item is what we call our draft preliminary budget. We usually start this process in May, and the board reviews the draft budget and provides direction to staff to any changes that you may want to see in the draft preliminary budget. After this evening, we'll take the the direction to staff, and we anticipate having an adopted preliminary budget before you at your June 21st meeting. So this is kind of on the preliminary budget. It's a 2-step process: direction tonight, final adoption in June. I also wanted to note we're going to do this evening's item. We're going to protocol-wise, we're going to do it in a couple of parts. And the way our protocol works is staff provides a report. So we provide a summary of what's included in the budget. And then after we do that, there is a period where protocol-wise where the board of directors asks questions of staff. It's not meant to make decisions or deliberate. It's just to ask staff any questions or get any clarifications on staff's reports or gather any additional information. After the board asks their questions, then we break and we take public comment. In accordance with the rules that the chair had just mentioned. Following public comment, then it returns back to the board. It's called under protocols for deliberation and direction. So that's, and so we're going to do that tonight just on the capital plan part of this evening's proposal budget. And then after we'll take direction from staff, or direction to staff. And then we're going to break the meeting, and then we're going to switch into the operating budget, of which we will follow the same protocol this evening, if that's okay with everyone. So with that, I'm going to start with the capital improvement plan that's before you this evening for FY 23-24, just for the benefit of the audience and to get us all on the same page, so to speak. We have a 5-year capital improvement plan, and it's just that, it's a plan. And the reason for that is a couple of reasons. One is because capital improvements usually can take longer than a year, sometimes multiple years. So what you see in the capital improvement plan is you might see a project that was approved in the plan, say last year or the year before, and that project is in different phases of moving toward construction of the project. The capital fund and the capital plan routinely has carryover funds from one year to the next. The second primary purpose of the capital improvement plan is it is a planning document. So the board entertains different projects and looking at needs of the community, not currently, but also moving forward. It allows the board to include things in the plan for future years, and then staff, both from a staff perspective and a financial perspective, can start to plan for those things and those priorities of the board. So that's kind of what a capital plan is. What happens as part of the plan is that each year the board appropriates funds as a part of that first year of the capital plan. So there's a plan, there's a bunch of projects in there, and there's priority of the boards, and then each and every year the board will appropriate funds for some of those projects. A good portion of them are carryover projects, and some of them are new projects. So that kind of lays the groundwork for the presentation. This evening, we're going to do this relatively quickly from a staff perspective. This is kind of the agenda we're going to do. We're going to go through the budgeted capital projects, capital outlay. We're going to look at future year capital projects, which are planned at this point. We're going to look at, just briefly review some recent community requests we've had for capital projects. We will then break and take questions from the board, and then we will get to the stakeholder community input. After that, we will be asking the board for some direction on the items under number 7, recommendations on this year's projects, recommendations on the capital outlay, and any changes or direction the board has for future projects. This is of the 5-year plan. This would be called year 1 of the plan. It's the upcoming fiscal year, which starts July 1st. So these are the projects that are recommended for appropriation in the 23-24 budget as a part of year 1 of the 5-year capital plan. I'm going to point out the ones that are new to this list. Any of them that I don't mention that aren't new are carryover projects from previous years. This item right here, the Arroyo Simi Phase 5 match, if the board will recall. We got a grant. There was a match requirement on that to continue improvements on the Arroyo Simi for bicycle and pedestrian use. That's a new item of $280,000. That's the grant, the match portion of that grant. The next new item is this one right here for $40,000. There's a concrete walkway and other concrete around the Houghton Park building that is in complete disrepair. So as a priority project, that has been added to this year's project, or this year's plan. Item number, this one right here, concrete renovation, same issue, we got broken concrete. Those are important because they involve tripping hazards and those types of things that we hear about. So that one, we've got some concrete damage at Indian Springs Park in Oak Park. That has been added this year. This item right here, Oak Park Community Center, is a bunch of improvements in the Oak Park Community Center. There's a list of about 5 or 6 items. That's a new item this year. Sandra Salute started this year as our new recreation supervisor. She took a peek at the building, and that's what we like. New folks look at things, and she came up with a list of things that she thought needed to be improved there, so we've added that to the plan. $1.3 million for the pool deck. We did include the $80,000 for the design last year, if the board would recall. We did add the project this year, which we're hoping to do in the December timeframe. That is a renovation of both the deck and the edging around the pool, which hasn't been done for a number of years. We are on notice from a regulatory agency to get that work done, so that capital project's been included. We have alternate funding sources for that project as well. Just a couple more that are new projects we added this year. Partition walls at the Rancho Sima Sioux Community Center. Those walls have been there since it opened, and I'm informed that they are broken and don't work. So those walls are what we use to split rooms up so we can break one room into 2 rooms and get better use of the building. Those are in disrepair and need to be fixed. The board already took action on this one earlier this year, but there's a new branch of the military, the Space Force. And we've added money at the Veterans Plaza to install the additional Space Force flag. We've added the kiosks. Last year, the board approved $50,000 for the kiosk project. We've been through design and planning on that, and there's 16 of them at about $5,000 per, or a little bit more per kiosk. So we've increased the budget on that. It's not new, we've just increased the budget on that item. And then this item right here is $315,000. That includes some carry, but also some additional funds for additional vehicle replacement. One other note is on the $3 million irrigation system. We're currently in design on that. I'm anticipating having an architectural or an engineered number for you. This was the staff estimate at the time. That number may need to be increased between now and when you look at it at June 21st. So with that, that is the recommended appropriated projects. I did want to note, and I'll be asking for some direction on this when we get to the policy direction at the end of the discussion. These are estimated costs that have been around for a couple years, depending on the project, and they're estimated by our planners and folks in the planning department. The construction cost index, as everybody knows, inflation has hit us hard, and we are also the subject of inflation. The construction cost index, just as a guide, without getting specific to projects, has gone up 22% over the last couple of years. So what I'm saying is I think in order to complete these projects, given the cost of inflation, it's going to cost us quite a bit more to complete these projects if the board moves to continue with these. So I'm going to be asking you or recommending that we reserve some funds to ensure that we have enough money to complete these projects potentially. This list is a list of capital outlay. We define capital outlay. Capital projects are $25,000 or more. Capital outlay is $25,000 or less. This is a list of items. It's kind of smaller items. There's quite a few recommendations here regarding the pool. Some of the equipment out there and the items you see are worn and old, and we'd like to replace those this year. There's some stuff for tasers. You guys approved new tasers. There's a little bit for new phones and voice protocol. Rancho Santa Su Community Center. There's a number of items here for improvements at the center, the Rancho Santa Su Center. Some of these are carryover and some of them are new. Item at the golf court, a few items at the golf course, and then a couple of improvements at Strathern to a couple of the facilities there. Again, some of those are carryover and some of them are new. I can break that down if you want. The total of that recommended in the budget is about $191,000. So that would be the money, that would be the projects that are recommended for appropriation in your budget this year. The next two lists are looking to the future, and these are projects that we don't have funding for or have not been appropriated yet. This is just a list of what's in the 5-year plan beyond this year, looking to next year and year 2 through 5 in the plan. Just a list of items that we're going to be looking at, probably needing to do or having the board contemplate in either next year or years after that. So I'm not going to go through that list other than I'll just leave it up for a minute for folks to take a peek at it. I would note that we consider these to be maintenance related. What I mean by that is we already own the facility, which means that we need to make sure it stays in good shape. So they get old, we've got to invest in that just like your home. We've got to invest in that to keep it current. These are most related to things we already own or have already constructed, not what I call new projects. This list is just a summary of what else is in the 5-year capital plan that I would call maybe more new stuff or things that need to be addressed, large vehicle replacement, park construction. There is a detailed list of this in print in your 5-year plan. So I didn't want to list all of those, but it's just a summary of those projects. If the board has any questions on those, we can certainly answer those questions. Chair and board, over the course of a given year, we entertain requests from the community to meet needs, and either whether it's in writing or they come to your board meeting, we get folks that are looking for support in various areas. This is a list of community requests that we've had recently. I'll just leave that up there. Disc golf, pickleball, BMX track, fire resiliency, bridle path, equestrian center, Frontier Park, a few new restrooms, a couple new play equipment requests, some shade structures, and then sports field lightings. Again, those are items that are are not, we don't yet have appropriated funds for those items. So with that, board, I will turn it over to you for any questions you may have of staff. I will also rely on Mr. Nakaoka and Mr. Miller to also answer any questions that you may have as well.
Any board questions? Ed, go ahead.
Great. Okay, Wayne, just to get you prepared, most of these are probably going to be for you. Some of them may be for Dan and others, but the first thing though is something that I have as an ask from those who are here in the public and representing the different groups. One of the reasons, well, the main reason that you're here is because we've heard from your interest or your group on one or more occasions during the past year. So we're familiar with the issues related to each of your interests. Certainly, if there's anything you want to emphasize, I would love to hear that. But if there's any new information you have for us, that is what I would most ask and most want to hear. In the past, we haven't conducted this meeting this way, and according to our policies manual and common sense, the input that you give us is what's important to us. But it's not like tonight is a debate contest or anything like that. We'll take into account all of the information that we've gotten over the past year and even beyond that. So we are familiar with the issues. So the main thing is emphasize what you think is important. If you have something new to tell us, that would be of great help, certainly to me, when you're giving your presentations and you have your 3 minutes. Wayne, some of these questions I have are for my specific benefit, but a couple of the others are just to put everybody on the same page in terms of what some of these things are. In terms of district-wide deferred maintenance, and Dan, if you could go to the, actually I think you're in the right place. Yes, okay. So you're on the page I want you to be on, that's great. In terms of district-wide deferred maintenance and that $1.285 million amount, what essentially does that include?
It includes a lot of things: playground replacements, parks, drinking fountains, repairs to chain link fencing. A lot of it is concrete repairs or minor repairs that are done by staff. We have a lot of block walls. We've neglected our trees for the last couple of years.
Can everybody hear, by the way?
I believe the speakers on. It deals with a lot of trees. We do a tree contract every year. We got about 4,500 to 5,000 trees in the park district. We trim about 200 to 300 a year, and some of those need supplemental trimming by request from neighbors and other people. We use that deferred money for that.
And a lot of this stuff that's on the deferred maintenance, some of it's routine, but a lot of it is stuff that I take it is in deep need of repair.
Yes. What I've done is I do park inspections once a month. I do 4 or 5 parks each month. From that list of things that needs to be completed, I've compiled a list with Dan of the last 5 years. We call that our deferred maintenance items. From there, we've broken up to 3 sections: what I can do with staff, what I need money for in contract services, and what the stuff that needs to be publicly bid, because they're large projects.
All right, I want to ask you about a couple specific items. I like the whole kiosk idea. Director Dennert and brought to our attention. I know at one time we had about a $50,000 estimate on it. Now we have $100,000. What am I getting for that $100,000 for kiosks?
You're getting the complete installation of 16 brand new kiosks, which breaks down to about $6,200 a piece. I believe that the purchasing cost is about $5,000, and we need about $1,000 to install them.
Okay, and what essentially describe what a kiosk is?
Kiosk is an information board that we place at trailheads, at park sites, at our lagoons, just to provide information to the general public.
Okay. Now, the other thing that I've noticed, and it caught my attention because I've parked at these parking lots frequently over the past year and even more than that, is some of the items, and they all come in at over $100,000 each, is the parking lot slurry seal and replacement. For someone who just goes to these parks, to park there and to enjoy the parks, or in my case, maybe to inspect the parks, the parking lots, you know, they're certainly not new, they're newly paved, but they're fine. Can you explain the importance of doing that work?
Primarily, it's the degradation of the asphalt itself. A lot of our parks were built 20 years ago. The asphalt degrades, the oil in it leaches out, it becomes crumbly and soft, the lines on it are no longer there. Slurry sealing seals the asphalt again, and then we can restripe it. It should last maybe 10 to 15 years. Some of the projects that you mentioned that are about $100,000 is where the asphalt's completely gone. It has to be replaced. I believe Rancho Madera, the Ballville parking lot, there's no lines and it's awfully sandy. You can drive on it. You pick up a big pile of rocks and dirt every week out of there. But those are primarily what it is. It's protection of the parking lots.
Okay, now, Dan, if you can go to the slide, recent community requests for capital projects. I think my first question, Dan, is going to be for you. Wayne, I'm still going to need you, so hang in there. In terms of the BMX track, what is the current situation as far as the land in the city is concerned?
We've worked with the city and the city manager, and previously, if the board would recall, we had a lease for the BMX track. But that, because we didn't have the money at the time for the BMX track and we were putting it for other projects, that lease expired. So we do have agreement with the city manager to renew that lease, but that's at a staff level. So the lease needs to be reconsidered and reapproved to extend it by the city council. So we're waiting for them to take that item up at the city council and extend that lease.
Now, I know I've spoken in the past with a couple of the city council members, and we were hoping this would get on the agenda in January, maybe February. Do we know why it hasn't and what the status is with that?
There's a couple other proposals for that particular site that have come up in the interim, and so I think the city has taken a little bit of time to do their due diligence on those. So that's where we are. I'm attending a meeting on one of them next week, so I continue to try to get the city property leased to us for the BMX track project. As soon as we get that, we can, if the board wants, we can start on the project, or at least start doing the environmental work for the project.
Other than getting the lease adjusted and having the land from the city, are we ready to go on that project?
Yes.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about is pickleball. And Wayne, this is for you. When we converted 2 tennis courts at Rancho Cini into pickleball courts, that converted into how many pickleball courts?
It's a total of 6.
Okay. And currently at Rancho Tapo Park, correct me if I'm wrong on these numbers, there are 4 pickleball courts, 4 tennis courts, and 1 dual-purpose court?
There's 4 pickleball courts, 4 tennis courts, of which 2 of the tennis courts have been overstriped with pickleball.
All right. And based on the spatial considerations at Rancho Cini, converting 1 tennis court or 1 dual-purpose court into pickleball courts allowed for 3 pickleball courts. Would that be the same situation at Rancho Tapo?
Yes and no. I believe Rancho Tapo's tennis courts are a little longer. We have, I believe, 22 feet from the base foul line to the fence, which is a little more than Rancho Cini. I believe that if we rotated them, we could get 4 courts in.
Per tennis court?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I sometimes get my parks confused. I want to say in Oak Park, we have dual-purpose courts at Deer Hill, correct?
That is correct.
Right. And there are two tennis courts at that location?
Yes.
And as a dual-purpose courts, that means 4 pickleball courts that can be used as well. Am I right on that?
That one I've already taken a look at. We can get
No,
6.
no, what I'm asking is, right now, in terms of its current usage, how many pickleball courts can be used at one time?
4.
4. And if one of those tennis courts, as an example, was converted into pickleball courts, how many pickleball courts could you get per tennis court?
I'm going to say 3.
Okay. And is it more costly to start from scratch and build new pickleball courts than it is to convert a tennis court to a pickleball court?
Yes, it's.
Okay. And can you give me some idea of the difference in cost?
To convert one tennis court to either 3 or 4 pickleball courts is about $100,000. And I'm guessing, without doing any critical math, it's between $90,000 to $125,000 per pickleball court brand new.
Right. So anywhere from 3 to 5 times as much for brand new courts as opposed to converting tennis courts to pickleball courts.
That is correct.
It's probably assuming you can find a place to put them too, right?
That's always a problem.
Now, I want to ask you about sports field lighting. The lighting for the softball and soccer fields at Rancho Madera, Rancho Tapo, and Rancho Santa Susana, is that essentially the same type of lighting?
Yes.
Okay. And how long has that lighting been there? Is it about 30 years?
They're installed between 1988 and 1994, 93.
Right. And by today's standards, would that be considered outdated lighting?
Yes.
The lighting at Rancho Simi Park, how old is that?
That I actually have no idea, but the park was built in 1971. So I'm assuming that was put in phase 1 for the plans we have. So 1972 is when it was opened.
About 50 years old.
That's correct.
The looking at the numbers, if we go to the chart, fiscal year 2024-25 to 27-28 planned capital projects, the estimated cost to do the lighting at all of those locations is about $2.8 million.
That is correct.
Now,
I'm sorry, Director Abel, I just want to, I want to make sure that's an updated number, Wayne. 1 minute here, let me find it.
Should be just short.
Because I know you went to Musco Lighting and asked to give them an updated cost. So we talked about the 2 larger parks being $1 million or $1.1 million each. So that's 2.2. And then you'd have Tapo and Madera left, correct?
It's only 3 fields left.
Okay, and how much at each of those sites?
Well, if we match it up, it'll be $70,000, $3 million
For the other 3?
for the other 3.
So, Chair, I think that
About
has
$3 million.
About $3 million, yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you have a current number.
all right, and then, so with that in mind, going back to the current year budgeted capital projects, the current estimate on here for the full phase 4 construction at Rancho Santa Susana Park is over $6.2 million. Is that still an accurate estimate?
Yes.
Okay.
And Chair, if I could, I'm going to say it's a little low, given construction. That estimate was developed about 1.5 years ago, and Wayne may be right. It just, as we know,
$7 million?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
All right, $7 million. And in terms of, just so that everyone understands, in terms of things that absolutely would have to be done to begin work on that project at Rancho Santa Susana, there is a situation involving Lead Street. That would be whatever you want to call it, concurrent or a prerequisite to doing that project, correct?
That is correct. We have the infrastructure, we have to do the street improvements.
And how much of that 7 million would that aspect of the construction cost?
Based on our latest estimate, 1.5 million.
And also, I'm assuming that irrigation for the park would be something that would be a prerequisite to doing anything else there as well. Is that right?
That's correct, right after the grading.
And how much would the grading and irrigation? How much would that run?
Grading and irrigation. I got the grading down for about $300,000. Irrigation, about $300,000. And the turf on top of that, about $250,000.
Part of that project is to take, not the entire, but a bulk of the dirt area that is used for parking and use it as paved parking. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And to do the paved parking portion of that project, what would the approximate cost of that be?
I did work it out between 1.5 and $2 million.
So probably $2 million.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the estimate that's given for Rancho Santa Susana Park, let's go with the 7 million. If I'm understanding, that does not include improving the existing lighting that is there right now.
That is correct.
And in terms of doing all of the other things that we have for that phase at Rancho Santa Susana Park, including adding additional fields. Let me ask one other question. The additional fields would, part of what's proposed there is to have lighting at the additional fields, the new fields that we need there. Is that right?
That is correct.
And how much of the cost of the additional fields would be attributed to the lighting aspect?
How much of the fields would it be?
The lighting, how much would the new lighting cost?
We had an estimate for it between $650,000 and $700,000.
Okay. So the paving of the dirt area and the lighting combined would cost somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million.
Roughly, yes.
And that's roughly the amount of money that it would take to improve lighting at existing fields throughout Simi Valley.
That is correct.
One last question. In terms of the pool, I know there's some aspects of the pool that we have on the project list for the current year, and others that are down the road. Just describe for me how you would, from your standpoint, the whole pool situation, each aspect of it. Where are we at in terms of how much in need of repair it is?
Well, currently the pool deck itself, we've been given the notice by the Ventura County Health Department that is in non-conformance. We have too many cracks in it. We have some uplifts. Some of the areas are parking out. Some of the cantilever sections of the pool deck, which we call the scupper areas, are actually falling off. They're breaking off and falling into the pool. All that area is projected to be done this year. It's been budgeted. You retain the services of Mad Haven and Jones, or Jones and Mad Haven, which is the architects in Thousand Oaks, to redo the plans.
How confident are you with some of the projects for the pool that are waiting several years down the road in terms of not having a problem before that?
I can't say. One of the projects is replacing the pool building, which is badly need to do that. It's an outdated building. The pumps for the building are okay. We just redid those. The vault Douglas just redid. Pretty optimistic about the pool.
Okay. One last thing that I neglected to ask you about. Last week we had a meeting where one of the main topics was the equestrian center, and there were 3 different options, and the first option was just strictly a cleanup and maintenance of the equestrian area. There was no cost budgeted for that. Is that because it would just come out of our regular budget for maintenance?
It would come out of me using my regular staff and whatever funds I have in the maintenance budget, supplemental.
Would doing that impair your staff time much or not?
No.
Okay. Would it put the equestrian center in a usable condition?
The rink will be usable. The area would be a little bit protected as we'll clean out the drain lines. It'll be usable. It'll be functional for recreational level usage, not for competition.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I have a question. That's a good question. That was quick. I'm looking at some of these on the budgeted capital projects, and a couple of things leap out at me. 2 of them are the trailhead kiosks and the Class 1 trail maintenance. I know we've had volunteer labor, we've had Eagle Scout projects for some of these. Is there any aspect of any of these that we could farm out to like Eagle Scouts or other volunteers? Those 2 leaped out at me.
I can address the Class 1 budget for $30,000.
Yeah.
That's actually pass-through money we get from the city of Simi Valley to enable me to maintain the Arroyo Simi.
Okay.
We have to spend that every year, and we have to document what we do for that money.
Oh.
And Director O'Brien, I'd note that that's base level maintenance. We rely on volunteers above and beyond that to do more. So they're already doing a large amount of work. The volunteers are helping us on the Arroyo.
Okay.
So we do some, and then we rely on the volunteers to do some on top of that.
Okay, that's what I'm understood. And I guess the trailhead kiosks they're more complicated. It's not something.
It's not complicated. There's just 16 of them.
Okay.
And when we consider buying a prefabricated one that's $5,000, and you need about $1,000 worth of cement that the contractor put in the ground and
Yeah.
construct it, it's $6,200 a piece times 16. It's $100,000.
Yeah, and then I would put that in a class that would be above and beyond the abilities of any given volunteer. We need contractors for that.
Okay, all right. I had a hunch you guys had thought this out already, but I thought I'd ask anyway. Okay, that's all I had.
Any other, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Dan, do you have available the pictures of what the kiosk possibly could look like? I have other questions too that takes you a minute.
I do not. I might be able. We may be. Let's see if Zach can go find some.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll be able to pull it up.
Zach, I got other questions
We
for
might
you.
have some print. We might have some sample print copies, but I can't guarantee it.
If you just emailed it. You just email it to Dan so everybody can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see them.
Wayne, my question is about the deferred maintenance list. And on the deferred maintenance list, I would ask you to describe the size of it. What I mean by that is, it's pretty large. Is it growing, shrinking, staying the same over the last few years?
Based upon what I revised this year, it went down a little bit, but it didn't go down a lot. Even though we had spent about maybe $400,000 on deferred money, a lot of new items popped up on the list this year during my park inspections that need to be taken care of. A lot of it's uplifts because we allow bicycles and skateboarding in the park. I can't have the uplifts. Every year it seems like they pop up or grow out of the ground.
And then, so over the last year, it shrank slightly. Would you say over the last 5 years, it's been growing or shrinking, stay about the same?
It's been growing. With the escalation of costs, what cost us $1 million 10 years ago is now $15 million today. So yes, it's growing in cost.
Then my next question, Dan, it's for you. I know we're working with the city for the BMX location. Dan, if we're not able to secure that property, the city's not able to lease it to us, what's your confidence we'd ever find another location?
We've gone through 2 rounds of looking for a site for the BMX track, either our property or city property. We did it a good 4 years ago, and we also revisited a year ago. I would say it's very, very small. Obviously, we can find a site if we buy land, but that land's expensive, so it would increase the price of the cost. So I would say we do not, as a park district, have a viable site for an alternative location for the BMX track at this point.
When we get to public comment for the equestrian center, Director Alba raised some good questions. I'd ask for specific feedback to address this question. If, from the staff report from the last meeting, if option number 1 would make it usable for the community, I wouldn't want to spend some money on it and find out it's not usable, rather than spend more money it would be usable. And then the other question I had was, Zach, when we looked into pickleball last time, we received a lot of feedback about dual stripe or taking over tennis courts to pickleball courts.
Not here.
He'll be back. Maybe I'll ask that a little bit later. That's a good point. And then that's it for me.
Director Freeman, did you have any questions?
No, I just have a comment on the deferred maintenance. I think it's an item on our agenda. It needs to be respected because things happen during the year.
Chair, I have comments too, but we really should.
Yeah.
I'll hold my comment.
Noted, thank you. Director O'Brien?
I had that one question.
Okay. Just in time, he walks in the door.
Let's see if it works now.
I know Director Denner also had some additional questions for you as well, Zach.
Chair, if I could.
Yes.
Regarding the kiosk, we were planning a presentation to the board on June 7th. So while we're showing the photo of the kiosk, staff still has more work to do on it. And also before then in preparation, and none of the board members have seen that yet. So I just want to put up that caution. You guys haven't seen it and we're still working on it. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
I haven't reviewed it myself, so.
Yes, Director Denner, did you have questions for Zach?
If you just flip through it quickly. I know it's a rough draft.
Yeah, so again, this was a draft. We weren't prepared necessarily tonight, but we will have 3 concepts for you. This is concept number 1. This is all of these are prefab. They're just kind of level of detail that we might put into each of these. Concept 1 is kind of the traditional national park kind of level kiosk, informational trail signage. You can't really blow up the center section there, but it's very specific to each park. This would be at the trailhead of each of our major trails and include some of our bigger parks. Alex, you want to go to see if you can find, sorry, go to, yeah, there you go. Concept 2 is a little bit more trimmed down, 1 panel in the middle, less customizable, less information maybe to go into those, but you can kind of see where concept 2 would be, a little bit cheaper option for the board. And let's see if there's a concept 3, I believe we do have one in there. There you go. And that's probably your most economical version, although it's no roof, a little less weather resistant, but still an option for the board on June 7th.
Zach, I had a question about pickleball.
Okay.
I should have looked up to see that you were doing that first thing.
That's right.
Last time that we looked into pickleball, we had a lot of feedback specifically to Duck Pond, but how much of that feedback was about Lemon Park or Rancho Capital Park? Like people are objecting to dual use or converting courts. Is your recollection they mentioned that a little bit or a lot?
I believe that each time the board considers a conversion, we hear from the tennis community in some aspect. I don't know that one park had more negative feedback towards conversion than others. So I believe that if there's a preferred option for the board, we would just have to go take it back to the community and see what the community's input would be. But I think both Rancho Simi and Rancho Tapo would both be potential options for conversion should you choose to go that direction.
And have you heard any feedback from the pickleball community why they're not using Sinaloa more during the week or besides the weekend? The weekend I see a lot of players there, but after school I don't often see as many players.
Yeah, that's been kind of consistent with my my information that I'm receiving as well. That I believe that my hunch is that people are finding enough places to play at the other 2 parks or are willing to wait at the other 2 parks as opposed to driving across to the west side of town. That's just anecdotal, so I don't have any data to support that, but that is my impression of why Sinaloa doesn't get used in the evening as much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, and was there,
I have one question.
yes,
Close
Vice
it
Chair
differently.
Freeman.
Wayne, is the deferred maintenance line item in the budget, that's a standard budget item each year?
You mean for the I'm sorry, for the deferred maintenance.
And deferred maintenance is a
No,
standard budget item each year.
It's not a standard item. Dan started it last year. It's whatever he can scrape together for me. We have about $5 to $6 million right now in deferred maintenance. Getting $1.4 million a year helps. It's a 5-year plan to get everything done. If Dan can't afford it, he'll lower that deferred money in the budget as necessary.
Thanks.
Any other board questions at this time? All right. Not hearing any board questions, that will start us in the public statement item for this evening. I have speaker cards, and I will do my best to call the names as best I can. I apologize for any mispronunciations. But please keep in mind, for everybody in the audience who is speaking this evening, you'll have approximately 3 minutes. The board is focused, and you heard some requests from my fellow board members already about any new information that you can highlight for us would be deeply appreciated. At some point while you're speaking, a director may have a question of you as well, if you're able to answer. With that, the first speaker card I have is for Laura Stayer from the softball community.
Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. And thank you for putting together this great improvement plan. I know we've been working on it for a few months now, coming here and representing the softball community. What I would urge or respectfully request the board to do is to give priority consideration to those softball lighting fields. Softballs, they come off the bat at 106 miles an hour, average 95 plus, and as an infielder, I'm standing 65 to 70 feet away. And the lighting makes a huge difference. We've had multiple injuries just this year to players because they can't see the ball coming off the bat at those type of speeds. So for safety reasons and the number of teams that you have playing, we have 68 just this season alone. Multiply that times 3 seasons. You have a lot of adult participants, not to mention the youth that participate. So with the safety considerations, the information on the speed of the ball and how old these lights are, 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, I do respectfully request that the board give priority consideration to the softball lighting fields. And as you laid out, that some of the improvement plan for the park system, the Rancho Eastern Park, some of the non-safety measures included in those proposals could be used to better suit and create safety for the players that are out here. So that's all I have.
How many teams did you say?
68 this season.
Okay, and it's roughly 10 to 12?
10 to 12. I counted 816 players just this spring season. Now I play 3 times a week on these fields, so you can subtract 3 from there. There's a few people that do play multiple times a week, but if you have 12 players on a team, it would be 816. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker card that I have in front of me is from Randy Calloway from Simi Valley Little League.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it for being invited to this meeting and allowing me to speak. My name is Randy Calloway. I'm the president of Simi Valley Little League. Simi Valley Little League has 2 divisions. It has a Challenger division and a Senior Challenger division. These divisions are for the players with intellectual and/or physical disabilities. We currently have about 100 players, 100 male, female players ages 3 to 40. We have had people 60 years old playing. Majority of them are from Simi Valley, but we do go far as Camarillo, Santa Clarita, and Encino. We are involved in the community. Many of the youth organizations here, baseball, softball, they've come out to help us buddy with the kids. High schools have come out. Their baseball, softball, soccer, football teams have all come out to help with the kids. Recently, junior high schools have been asking for community hours, so they'll come out also. And even the Ventura County firefighters and the police officers have come out to buddy with our kids. The Challenger Field is located on Blackstock. It was built about 10 years ago with full ADA compliancy. It was built without a snack shack. Volunteers every week bring ice, drinks, snacks for the kids. We don't have any hot dogs or chili or gut busters or anything like that. So Simi Valley Little League would like to be considered to receive funds for a new snack shack. I've looked at the situation there, and if you place the snack shack in the right spot, the baseball field that's there and the sports complex that's next to it can all utilize that snack shack if it's put in the right spot. Also, every week we unload sound equipment, awnings, paperwork, anything in order to announce, play music, conduct business from a table behind home plate. So we're also asking for permission, we don't need money for this, but permission to move a picnic table and place an announcer's booth behind there so that we can store equipment and conduct business and announce the games. It would make it a lot easier. We just need permission to do that. And that concludes, if you have any questions.
Have you tried to get permission to do that?
Roughly, but I mean, every time I ask to do this, I try to get a snack shack, and every time food is mentioned, we get shut down right away.
I'm talking about moving the picnic table.
Yeah, but I mentioned it one time, and they said that you can't put anything there if you're going to put food in it. And so I haven't asked specifically without any food in it. This is the first time I've actually specifically asked for an announcer's booth. It would be a tough shed with one of those open things where you can stand inside and announce. So I'm open for questions, or that would be it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Zach, there's two parts to that request. One was the announcer's booth. Is that something, if I asked staff to follow, would that be you?
Yeah, Wayne or I could work on simple moving of a picnic table. Anything permanent structure-wise, I'd have to consult with Wayne or the city if it was a permitted kind of issue, but I can't see that a picnic table would raise to that bar.
If you just get back to us in the future and the progress on that. And then the second thing, Snack Shack, we don't have an estimate or we don't have any cost associated with that we would know. Like
that would be new construction for Wayne to probably consider. I don't know if he would be able to estimate that tonight, but we have had, I know this request has come up in the past, and there are some issues with the school district being close to that property. Food handling and health department issues would have to be resolved before we could open up any kind of snack bar on that property.
So we might not have a budget number tonight, but I'd be interested in information about that in the future.
Can I say one more thing? I just would like to mention that moving that picnic table, I have contractors that can move that, so you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, we
can talk about what it is.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is John Corrigetto or Conighetto from SVYSL. Sorry, I can't distinguish the R and the N.
That's okay.
And from what organization?
Hi, I'm John Corrigetto. Thank you for listening to my be talking about our needs here. I'm from Simi Valley Youth Soccer League and Simi Valley Football Club Premier. But I'm also here, I just wanted to talk really briefly as a parent. I lived here in Simi Valley for over 25 years. My kids were born and raised here, played sports their entire lives, and I just wanted to say how important, they're both in their 20s and in college now, but just how important sports are to the development of young youth in our community, and how important, well, all the organizations here are very important, but just how important soccer is to this community. Again, talking specifically about the construction over at Rancho Santa Susana, and how important that's going to be for all of the soccer community. Soccer is one of the highest participation sports, and one of the things that we've seen in our organization is a decline in players, and we're worried about that. So I know it's a very expensive task that you guys are considering with the construction. However, it's something that's going to really benefit the community, particularly the youth of our community, who are not just interested in playing soccer for fun, but also interested in pursuing soccer in college and so on. So again, as an organization and then also as a representative of the community, I just wanted to echo what a lot of people are going to say tonight, which is that the construction of that facility is really, really important. Again, my kids are beyond the age of enjoying that community park, but you know, so hopefully someday when they return home from college, they'll have kids of their own and hopefully want to stay in a community like Simi Valley. So again, just the importance of something like that community park and building that soccer complex is just so important to our players and to the community at large. So thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is, I believe it says Kimber Corp or Klimber. I apologize. Santa Susana Baseball.
Good. All right. Hi, Grove Anderson. I'm going to speak for Kimber. We have our board meeting tonight.
This is which organization?
For Santa Susana Baseball, up at Helton Park.
Yep.
First off, I'd like to just say thank you for everything you guys do with us and help us out. Laura and Zach have always been a great source of communications to help us get things moving forward. With Santa Susana, we've been talking with Zach and Laura about upgrades to our fields over there. You know, we need, all our fencings are starting to lean and rot. They've started helping with a lot of the work there, but there's a lot of the main pillar poles that are starting to lean and lose foundations on them. A lot of the irrigation or the drainage in the fields are flooding. The drains are no longer there, so we have muddy fields for the kids to play on. We were talking with them about actually putting lights in our walkway paths, because right now there are no lights at Santa Susana, so when evening dusk happens, it's dark when people are walking around. And the second part of that is if we do the light upgrades, we would need paneling upgrades because we are at the limit of the panels of electricals there. That also, our pony field, as if you guys know, is up on Valley View. And to get there, it's a dirt trail and is not ADA compliant for anybody in a wheelchair or in a walker to get up to that field to enjoy their kids or grandkids to play the games. Roughly, that is pretty much everything we have that we're needing to upgrade to keep our field safe and fun for the kids to play and enjoy baseball.
Tell me again which park?
Santa Susana Baseball. It's up at Houghton Park between Valley View and Township. The other El Patio.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you use solar for the walkways?
We currently are, and we're maxed out of our own temporary lighting.
Okay.
But solar becomes very expensive because the low grade of solars that we can put on the poles that are there now are just AA's and D batteries, and it's a constant replacement upon those. So we use the current power we've done there. We've worked with you guys and we ran the wiring out to as far as we can, which is about the center field of our fields, and ran power to what we can and get motion sensors for security. But it's not enough to make it truly safe for people to walk around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker card I have is from Dan Mason from AYSO.
hello, like you said, I'm Dan Mason from AYSO. I'm the field director. I deal a lot with grounds and maintenance crew, and I'm out there quite a bit. We're really looking forward to the completion of the Rancho Santa Susana master plan. It's been put out in front of us for several years, and the plan is progressing. We are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're very hopeful. The fields have degraded a little bit on those fields, just due to time and gophers and gopher holes and gopher mounds. And I saw research one time saying that an athletic field should be replaced every 7 years. Well, it's been much more than 7 years there. If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably 25 years, 22, 25 years, something like that. The fields and the proposed plan is great. We've reviewed it with various representatives from the Parks District, and we're all in agreement that we want that master plan to be approved. It's not like they're the soccer community, which I would imagine is around 1,800, 2,000 players, ages 3 to 19 in our community use those fields. Briefly, we just would love to see that plan fulfilled. Our kids had a great experience, and some of our grandkids now are having great experiences, and we look forward to future generations enjoying those fields and building teams, building parents, getting to know one another, interacting, and building our community together. Thank you.
Dan, quick
Yes.
question. The 1,800, is that, would that become, when I occasionally attend your soccer foundation meetings, would that be the combined participation of all the groups put together?
That's correct. And what do you think about that, John and Tim?
I would just say it's
Higher?
higher.
We have like 1,200, we have 80, that's 2,000 just wrapped.
So over 2,000?
So I think like closer to 3,000, like, yeah.
Plus the adults.
There's a lot of them.
Yes, and that we have the adult league also, several adult leagues. And so there's oftentimes competition for practice space, practice under the lights, that sort of thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone from staff have an extra pen they're not using? Because I'm
Yeah.
really drained.
Oh, are you looking for a pen?
Yeah, I'm like hurt. Thanks.
One moment for technical issues. The next speaker card I have is Debbie Tapia from AYSO.
He's using up ink because he's taking careful notes on all the community requests. I can see it from here.
What else would I be doing?
Writing questions, I'm not sure.
Hi, so my name is Debbie Tapia, and I'm actually the area director for AYSO, so I represent the communities of Moore Park, Simi Valley, Malibu, Thousand Oaks, and Agora Westlake. So I have the unique perspective of working, this is my home region because my kids all grew up here, and I volunteered here for over almost 15 years. But the idea that I get to work with parks and districts and see what you guys do in other communities as well. And I appreciate your work in this, and I know, there's always adversity with space and, money always. And I just think that, we have had this master plan of this, Santa Susana Park for as long as I can remember starting working with AYSO. In fact, it used to be like you were gonna convert that parking lot into a pond back in the old plan version, and now it's been improved, we're actually gonna pave it. I know my personal AYSO here in Simi spends a lot of money and man hours painting that parking lot every week. Dan Mason puts in a lot of hours laying it out and getting it painted so people can safely park. I just know that there's a lot of children in this community that play soccer, and I know that if we expand these fields, we could also probably use some other, it could be multi-use for other sports as well. I know you have a big flag football component, lacrosse is coming in. We just need more field space, and I know the space is limited. I would just like you to consider kind of keeping us a priority and keeping that project a priority. I know it's kind of trailed for a long time. It would just be nice to see it kind of moving forward at this point. And again, I appreciate all of your work and all you do. This is a really, you guys, I mean, compared to other cities, we have great resources, and you guys are really great at what you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is from Rich Rafich, I apologize, from Simi Valley Soccer Club.
Rich had to leave.
Okay, never mind. The next speaker card I have after that is from, I apologize, either Jim or Tim Fuller from VCU Soccer Foundation.
Thank you and good evening. Tim Fuller with Ventura County United Soccer Club, and also in representation of the Simi Valley Soccer Foundation. Just to kind of get an update of the, and kind of see where the money is going with the improvement plan, and to give our support to, you know, the works that are going on up there. And like everyone's saying, we really anticipate that coming to fruition at some point. Because kids in the community would love that extra space, along with, you know, all of the soccer organizations. But thank you guys for your time and your efforts that you guys put in for our city of Simi Valley. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Rick Joyce from Pickleball Community.
Hi there, my name's Rick Joyce. I've been a resident in Simi since 1979, and I'm here about some pickleball courts. I've been playing pickleball for about 8 years now. Currently I play at Lemon Park, or I guess it's Rancho Tapo, and there are 4 dedicated pickleball courts there, along with the 2 line tennis courts, and there's 2 extra tennis courts. Since we've been over there, we have quite a group that plays. But the tennis courts that are lined, really no tennis players play over there. More pickleball players are over there. But we're just trying to get more courts. And I went through, and I brought this. I came up where, I'm sorry, you could put 4 pickleball courts on each of the tennis courts. So we could get as many as 8 more pickleball courts on those 2 courts. I don't know how this really works. I'm not doing it for any organization. It's for just the general pickleball players that are out there. But what I'd like to know is there a way to do like a public city partnership to raise funds to maybe get this done and get it done quickly and allow us to get these courts quicker than maybe what might normally happen. So that's why I'm here. I know there's someone else here that's going to be talking a little bit more about some other stuff, but I'm strictly here just about the 2 courts that were brought up earlier. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
You don't, so you strictly play at Lemon Park?
I do. I have played at other parks, but that's just where our group, so there's about 30 of us that kind of get together on a regular basis. I normally play about 3 times a week, so I'm over there probably 10 to 14 hours a week. So I got a pretty good idea of, you know, who's showing up and what times, and that's why I say
You don't play at Rancho Simi, the Duck Park at all? Or?
I have played there, but it just, there's different groups that tend to, depend on where they are in the valley, it's just easier for them to do that. I used to play over at Sinaloa on weekends, but the biggest problem during the week is there's no lights. And that's probably the biggest problem over there. So I know that they talk about having tournaments. Now to me, if you had 12 courts at a park, you could actually, you know, put on events. Because who wants to, you know, like a couple weeks ago there was a tournament at Sinaloa. So it's a junior high, so you go over there, you play your games, you just leave. No one really hangs around. Because there's no, you know, over at the parks there's shade and there's trees and you can do other things while you know, bring the family and enjoy the whole day. And when you're at a junior high, you just can't do that.
So you're just asking for those tennis courts to be striped?
Well, yeah, to be turned into permanent pickleball courts. Right now, there are lines,
That's what I mean.
and there's portable nets. I mean, if nothing else, the nets they're really bad. I mean, like really bad, the nets that are over there now, they're just worn out. So at the least, if we can get some decent nets over there, because no one wants to go, you know, if you got good nets on one side and then really bad nets on the other side, it's, you know, it's really tough to play. It really is.
I have a question for the speaker. You mentioned fundraising towards getting it done quicker.
Yes.
Would that be something that you could take a leading role in helping us with?
I'm willing to do that, yes, I am. I've lived out here in Simi Valley for a long time. I support the police department with funds because they're very important. Now, the park system out here is fantastic, but pickleball is growing so fast that you're going to get to the point where, you know, people are going to be fighting over courts, which is not a good thing. You know, I don't mean physically fighting, but, you know, people get tense and there's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is and help people, and there's a lot of people I've talked to that are willing to do the same thing if we could do something like this. So yes, I'm willing to, yes.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could, just a note from the folks on Zoom. Apparently when the board is asking questions, they can't quite hear on Zoom, so I'd ask you guys to speak closely into your mic while it's on. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Gary Gossett for pickleball.
Hello, board. My name is Gary Gossett. I want to thank everybody here at the board for inviting me to speak about pickleball. Also, I want to thank the district manager for inviting me to speak about pickleball. It's a very important subject for me. I've been a longtime senior resident. I've lived here for 33 years, and I've been playing pickleball for about 10 years. And prior to playing pickleball, I was getting a little older. I started playing when I was 62 years old. And I was starting to feel like I didn't have other sports that I could play because as I aged, I just couldn't keep up. But I found that pickleball was something that I could do. I can continue to do it. I'm now 72 and I still play it at a fairly high level. And I really enjoy it. It keeps me in shape. I feel healthy, thin, and invigorated. I just want to let you know that there's a phrase out there, and it's called America's fastest growing sport. I've seen it lately on TV, in magazines. Everybody talks about pickleball. And the reason they're talking about pickleball is because since year 2017, we had about 3 million players in the United States. And now in 2022, we have nearly 9 million players in the United States. And it's not just for the retired. This demographic is changing. In 2021, players age 55 and up comprise the largest group of pickleball players. Now, they don't have 2023 yet, but the stats are showing that the younger players between 18 and 34 have overtaken the retired folks in playing pickleball. We have celebrities getting involved, Brian James to speak of. Other celebrities are starting to get involved, and the young people are following these celebrities on social media and discovering pickleball at such a rapid rate. It's very, very difficult to keep up. On another note, the gender difference is starting to unfold. Generally, it was more men playing pickleball than women, but since 2021, the percentage of women's interest in pickleball has increased and now practically is ready to surpass men's interest in playing pickleball. So we do have a problem in that we don't have enough pickleball courts to keep up with demand. I teach, thank you. Am I finished?
No, you got 30 seconds.
Okay. I'm a contractor and I work with RSRPD teaching pickleball. This year alone, between now and next June, I will have taught over 200 new players. And then I do community projects with pickleball and also competitive projects, and I have about 400 players in it each year that competes in those projects. So we are doing our best to play on the courts that we do have, but we need capital improvements. I have given everybody a list of those capital improvements. I'm not going to go over them today. These are suggestions. I interviewed 100 people to get these suggestions. And basically, people are saying that they need new courts and kind of a revision of the current courts that we have so that we can have better seating, maybe some shade, better lighting, and that sort of thing. So I do appreciate you listening to me tonight. And if you'll just take a moment during your day tomorrow or even this evening and look at the request for capital improvements, I would appreciate it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
One question for you. So I've already kind of scanned this while you were speaking, and just assume hypothetically that your dream of 12 lighted pickleball courts in Wood Ranch, which would probably be by the time you have the lighting in excess of $2 million, isn't going to happen. Which would you think would be more important, to have 6 additional permanent pickleball courts at the duck pond where you have the better lighting, or let's say 8 permanent pickleball courts, which would be the more realistic number at London Park, considering you have 6 already at the duck park?
Yeah, to answer your question, you could get the best of both worlds if you were to add 6 pickleball courts to duck pond.
Okay.
And if you would take at least 1 tennis court and convert that.
That wasn't my question.
But that's not your question.
Right. So for you,
that's my personal opinion.
Because of the lighting, you think the duck park would be more important than Lemon Park, assuming you couldn't do the lighting at Lemon Park.
Oh, okay. Assuming we couldn't do lighting, it would be a major improvement for our community to have the 6 courts at duck pond. Any questions from anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker card I have is Steve Hoffman, Oak Park Pickleball.
Good evening. The 2 gentlemen before me covered a lot of my remarks as far as the crazy boom of this pickleball. I'm here really to ask for help. Last night was just a regular night at our local Deer Hill facility where we have 4 courts from the 2 tennis courts. We had 16 people playing. We had 32 people waiting. There's nowhere to put the 32 people. Everyone is friendly. We're a family, but everyone doesn't get along within a family. And my job has now been play some pickleball. By the way, I'm the U.S. pickleball ambassador for Oak Park. And a lot of what I do right now is manage the players. We are just getting overwhelmed. The parking, the people, the beginning and intermediate classes are full, so every month 20 more people are being fed into the Deer Hill pickleball community. We are bursting at the seams. I know there was talk about maybe converting Deer Hill to 6 courts. My concern there would be that there wasn't space between each court or a way to stop the balls going from one court to the other. I just need help. We need dedicated pickleball courts. There, at Deer Hill, there are no tennis players. I haven't seen tennis players in 3 or 4 months, with the exception of Tuesday afternoons, a bunch of 4 and 5-year-old adorable little kids playing tennis into the pickleball nets. They're being taught by a young lady there. If possible, I would love to have 6 courts. I would love to have 12 courts. Anywhere we could think of, Oak Canyon, Deer Hill, just somewhere that we could build something, because every day I'm meeting 2 or 4 new players, and we're bursting at the seams. It's now a 12-minute game and a 30-minute wait. And it's only going to get worse. And somehow I'm the target of the people, because somehow I don't know. I think I didn't step back when everyone else did, and I was left there to be the ambassador. I'm thrilled to do it. I love the people at Deer Hill. We just need some help in Oak Park.
How long is the wait, you said?
Last night was probably 30, 35 minutes when I left. Oh, the other thing I want to mention is the way Deer Hill Park is set up. If this was the staircase, there's a 7-foot bench blocking people from going down the hill on this side, and this side is wide open. And tomorrow will mark the 1-year anniversary from a guy going down the hill and breaking his leg. And I see multiple people taking that path. And the city was nice enough to plant 4 bushes there, which people called the Garden of Stephen for a while, because I was the guy who went down the hill. And now there's 1 bush because people have walked through the 3 bushes that are there. So if we could put like a 7-foot permanent bench on that side to match the other one, we could stop this from happening again this year, because people will slide down the hill. It's just, there's so many people there, the staircase is blocked, and the next natural move would be go around the staircase down the hill. So that's all I've got. I appreciate anything you guys can do to make my job easier and expand pickleball in Oak Park.
Thank you.
Zach, can you follow up with the speaker later and let him know the next Oak Park Advisory Committee meeting?
Good. All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is from George Holt regarding disc golf.
First off, thank you guys very much for inviting me here. I have some handouts. Would it be appropriate if I handed them out to the board members and anybody else who may be interested? No, I don't need that. So summarizing those handouts are some of the things that I'm going to be talking to you about today. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. My name is George. I'm here representing the Rancho Simi Disc Golf Club and Mindset Disc Golf LLC, a company that was started in demand to help with all the additional players that disc golf has experienced lately and create events. And we've started a league, and the city benefits from our events by us paying permit fees. So in that handout, you'll see some of the statistics that are noted there. I forgot to put on there that those statistics are just from April of this year. So it's from last month, and that just gives you an idea of how many more players we've had lately. So when the disc golf course was put into Sycamore Park, the Elephant Rock Park, it wasn't done in consideration for what disc golf has become recently and the boom that we've experienced since COVID and beyond. So below on there you will find a list of things that I've spoken to all of our community members about. Similarly to that pickleball player, I've spoken to over 50 different disc golfers about these different issues, and these are the things that we need for this park to bring it up to the standards that we're looking for with the amount of people that we have. So one of them would be larger tee pads. The tee pads that we currently have are simply too small. You have to stand up onto them. You have to walk up onto them to be able to do your proper throw. So people are slipping, people are falling off of them. I've personally been injured by this, and I'm an aspiring pro player. So that just gives you some perspective for the seriousness of that issue. And one of the tee signs, or tee pads, has been redone for a hole 11. I believe Robert did it. 6 by 12 feet is what he did, and it's spectacular. And I hear nothing but compliments about it all the time. And then another thing would be the tee signs. This is something that we don't actually need parks funding for. We would just like permission. My company and my club is able to facilitate the design and the purchasing of these tee signs that would help. I've gone far over my time. I'll let you peruse the rest of the things I put on there. The last thing I would like to cover or emphasize is a weed problem that we have on the hills of the Elephant Rock Disc Golf Course. Most of the weeds there are over 2 feet tall, some of them as high as 6 feet tall. When you're throwing discs in there, it's impossible to find the discs, so people are spending an average of 30 additional minutes per round just looking for discs, trudging through those. And I've noted a couple suggestions for how we could have a long-term solution for this problem, and I've come to these suggestions by doing my own research and as well as communicating with the maintenance staff. Yeah, if you would have any questions about the things I've noted on there.
Dan, it might just be a quick question for you. And there was a request to put in signs. It's not really a budgetary issue. I generally like the idea. We need to add it to the agenda at some point, or that's like staff to handle and bring it to our attention if need be.
Yeah, we can probably, there's existing signs there now?
There's
just
one.
Replacing, yeah.
There's only one on hole 1, and it's not the style of sign that I've.
Yeah, Director, my only comment is kind of a larger picture comment. When we put those disc golf courses in some of the neighborhood parks, they were designed as neighborhood disc golf courses. They weren't designed as kind of high-level professional courses. So the more you add to those, it has the perception that it's more of a higher level of player. When it was more call it a recreational disc golf versus a pro disc golf course. So we can certainly do it. My concern would be is, are we going to get negative interactions with neighbors that live along the course in that neighborhood? But we can certainly do it if that's the board's direction, and that would be my caution.
Sir, if I may on that, respectfully, it is a standard for even recreational level disc golf courses to have T signs, and part of the reason is because it outlays the rules for the course. Like, for example, you have to throw to one direction of this tree, or you have to avoid these areas, and those rules also keep pedestrians safe.
Correct. Thank you. Yep, I agree. Thank you. So I'll talk to George and I'll talk to the staff whether or not we can get signs installed. And we'd be happy to do that as long as we're being good neighbors, so to speak. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. And the very last thing that I would like to emphasize, I'm aware I'm over my time, so I apologize. But that would be, we're really excited for this new potential disc golf course going into Oak Park campgrounds. And we've heard some stirrings that if that course does eventually get put in, that one of the neighborhood courses like Sycamore Park could be pulled because they want to return it to like the use of a normal park rather than a disc golf course in so many places. But they serve completely different things. For example, if you're out of work, you can go to Sycamore Park and get a 45-minute round in. But if you were going to go to Oak Park campgrounds, that would be like a 3-hour endeavor, serious hiking. You can't do that during the week. It would be for a very different purpose.
We haven't spoken about that.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The next speaker card I have just says it's from Shannon for NFL Flag VC.
As you stated, my name is Shannon Pugh. I am the owner of NFL Flag Ventura County here in Simi Valley. And I first want to thank you guys for your time, and I'm sure all these decisions I saw up there are not easy to make. One of the things I wanted to say in this new project going in over off of Stearns, right now football, I don't know if you guys know this, but football is one of the largest youth growing, flag football and football in general is one of the largest youth sports growing not only in the United States but all over the world. They're starting to have football and flag football pop up in places like India and China and Taiwan, especially since the Pro Bowl went to flag football. So I'm hoping when you guys do consider that you consider, thinking about football when you put that in over there. Right now in Simi Valley, we don't really have a home. We've got softball and soccer, but there's not really a home for flag football or for football in general. I know that my numbers are up. I know Bulldogs is here, and if they speak tonight, their numbers are up. The other thing is the lighting. One thing that we struggle with is, parents work until 5, coaches work until 5. So if we're going to practice, it's got to be after 5. And I lose kids that go to Thousand Oaks because they have programs over there with the ability to practice at night, and it's harder here for us. Shayna has done a phenomenal job finding us places to play. We've had to change from Saturday games in our seasons to Fridays and Saturday nights and different days of the week, which is fine. And then also creating that over there would also bring money to the city. And with everything going on in the economy and parents and people working, by bringing in a bigger place where you could do like tournaments, you would bring people in that would spend money at our restaurants, spend money at our hotels, and it would bring money in, to the economy here in Simi Valley. And so I'm hoping you guys are able to do that project sooner than later. And it would be great for all of us, whether they're soccer or football or whenever. It would help all of us. But when you do it, I'm just hoping that you might, consider a little bit more of football going into it. But that's it. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Tim Burr from Simi Valley Bulldogs.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting tonight. A lot of what I have to say reiterates what Shannon said regarding football. I grew up here in Simi Valley playing Viking football back to the 90s. I remember playing with you and you out there on those fields.
I usually won most improved player, if that says anything. Not MVP for sure.
We had Apollo for a long time as the home for Simi Valley football, and the Vikings are a staple. In the early part of the 2010s, football saw a sharp decline, and the Vikings ended up going away, and Apollo was taken away. Right now, the Bulldogs have taken over. We're now the Simi Valley Youth Football Organization, and we are the largest youth football organization in the entire area. Our Gold Coast League that stretches from Santa Barbara to LA out to Santa Clarita Valley is growing as well. Last year there was 96 teams. This year we are projecting 106 teams across the entire league. We are the largest organization within that, with over 350 participants in our organization. And that doesn't seem like a huge amount when you hear the numbers for soccer, but that's a sharp growth, and we continue to grow. And one of the issues we have now is not having a home place for our organization. We practice at Simi High, we practice at Royal, struggle with lights, struggle competing with the band, with baseball for field space and practice fields. And we're looking for a space for Bulldogs to be a Simi Valley organization. We have a close relationship with NFL Flag and would very much enjoy working with them on a field that would be a football area for both of us to use. We have different seasons, different days, as well as Grace Brethren and their football program being able to utilize that field for games here in Simi for their high school program. And we have a close relationship with Grace Brethren, as we do with Royal and Simi High. We also have projections for fundraising to be able to bring in money, a substantial amount of money over the 5 years to do something dedicated for football in Simi Valley. And we've looked into Apollo in the past, and I know that's been given to soccer. So with this capital improvement plan going forward, whether it's at that site at the Rancho Santa Susana Community Park, a place that could be a football place for Simi Valley, or if it opens up soccer there and we could maybe move back into Apollo and utilize that as the football area. We just hope that you take consideration for football here in Simi Valley and the growth that we're experiencing. We'd like to continue to grow, and we feel it's important for the youth in Simi and consider a home field for football here in Simi Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board questions? Okay, thank you. The next speaker card I have is Chris DeSantis from Sycamore BMX.
Hi guys, I'm Chris DeSantis, President of the Board of Directors for the Sycamore BMX track. We've been working closely with them and all you guys for the past 4 years on getting this project going. And during that time, we haven't wavered from our commitment to get the place established and also to operate the facility. We've provided you guys plenty of information, arguments why we should provide it for the community, for youth and for adults. The benefits to the community. We've had hundreds of supporters come to your meetings time and time again. We really don't have any new information for you, Ed. Really, we just know that you guys are supporting us and that we've been working to get to a finishing point on this track over the last 4 years. We'd like to thank you for that, and really the only question is when and where this is going to happen.
I have a question for you. It seems like it's been a year now when you guys had a presentation here, which was.
I can't.
I'm sorry.
Really,
It seems like it's been almost a year now since you guys presented in front of us last, and there was an excellent presentation in terms of how the track would be operated once it got built. Are the people who are involved in that, are they still part of this? Would they still be part of the operating team?
Yes, they are. They're actually in the audience too, part of my board. We all come to support you guys. It's Nicole Berg. She put together that great presentation before. They still have 3 young children that are still in the sport of BMX. You know, we just traveled to Lemoore, which is up by Fresno, to race last weekend. So there's really not many facilities for BMX.
And just so anybody who's listening may be aware, it's now 4 plus years since you've been about a track here, right?
That's correct. The track's been closed down for over 4 years.
I guess I would just have a quick question. You asked us how fast it could happen and all that. Have you spoken to the Simi Valley City Council?
No, Dan and I had a meeting earlier this year. We were under the impression that it was going to get put in front of them early in the year, possibly January and February.
We had the same impression.
So we really haven't gone in front of that board yet. We're kind of like, don't want to step on you guys' feet, you know, and cause any kind
I'm
of
just going
problems.
to, I know this isn't the time for comments, but start stepping. I mean,
yeah.
I'm beyond belief that it hasn't gone in front of them yet. We can only do what we can do here. You know, you guys are great at pitching your case, right now that's your best. You know, we want to go forward. We need the land, it's not moving anywhere. And I don't want to lose your team. I know that BMX is picking up in terms of popularity. You know, get your, you guys know how to show up en masse, just do it there. Go make your pitch there, and because I ask about this regularly. So you guys know how to do it. Go do it in front of the city council.
Chris, I'm practicing asking, saying things in the form of a question. You know I'm committed to supporting building this track.
Oh, yes, sir.
And then
100%.
And you know if you go to the city council that you'd have our support?
Correct, yes, I do.
That might conclude our questions for you.
Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
It's been a long time. We appreciate you guys.
The next speaker card I have is Dean Wageman. I apologize, from representing the Equestrian Arena and Bridle Path HOA.
Thank you. Dean Wageman from Bridle Path Homeowners Association, a resident there. I'm on the arenas committee. I manage the arena footings.
I apologize.
7 arenas.
Could you speak in the mic?
Sure.
Thank you.
I manage the arenas for 7 arenas and 2 round pins there. I want to take this opportunity to thank the board for the commitment and dedication to maintaining equestrian areas for public use. That said, the arenas that we have are for the residents, and so of course the public isn't able to use this area. So this is a great opportunity for the public to be able to have a place to access and be exposed to equestrian opportunities. We're super excited about kids to be able to get involved. One of the things that we're looking forward to is creating lessons, creating ways for more youth involvement. We recently had a show. My wife and I are members of UTI Corral 118, as well as 54 in Chatsworth. We recently moved here 5 years ago, and one of the first things my wife did was she wanted to show me the arena that she went to this year at First Horse Show. She said this is what got her hooked on horses. So we went there, and she was devastated when she saw the conditions. She didn't understand what it was all about, but she was happy to hear that Corral 118 was actively looking to get the place refurbished and reaching out to you folks. So thank you very much for what you're doing. The main reason I'm here is to advocate for the option 3B, which is in consideration for raising the arena footing a foot. The person that was brought in, the professional arena consultant, was spot on with what he said about what he needed to do to raise the footing. What that would allow the surface to do was keep dry during a wet, rainy season. Right now, the conditions are dished, which creates water that mixes with the DG underneath the sand. Once that condition happens for the larger audience, this creates clumps, for lack of a better term. These clumps end up deteriorating the footing. It creates a hard footing surface. And once that sand is in that condition, it's pretty much over. You have to remove it and bring in new sand. Raising this footing a foot will create a dry condition. It will protect the sand. And it also keeps down the dust that happens during when that organic gets mixed with the sand. So it'll save water as well. So the 3B option is definitely the preferred option, and it'll allow a firmer footing for any of the activities for showing horses that we're looking forward to do, our corrals looking forward to do in the future. So thank you.
For the facilities that you have at the bridle path, how would you match them to ours? Like, would you say that they're 3B?
I'm hopeful they will be.
So what are they now?
So the footing at the arena currently?
In the bridle path.
In the bridle path? Oh, yes, yes. We're absolutely at 3B condition at all times. So what we spoke about earlier in a previous meeting was that will allow the footing to stay stable for up to 8 to 10 years without having to be completely redone. So that's the goal we've been shooting for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker card I have is Susan Fleesoff from the Greater LA Paint Horse Club.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for working on this long-awaited rehab of the Arroyo Simi Equestrian Center. Greater LA Paint Horse Club that serves Ventura and LA County is looking forward to partnering with Rancho Simi Parks and Rec to bring the Equestrian Center back to life. We would like to see it utilized by many different groups and to enhance its versatility and advertise its many uses for other venues to use. We would also like to bring back from Moore Park the Simi Youth Summer Riding Camp program. That offers instructions to youth from 6 years old on up to whatever age. Equestrians go up to age 60 and above, so there's a lot of potential, use of it there. We'd like to bring back the Simi Valley Days Horse Show to showcase Simi Valley's rural heritage. We've worked with a person who runs the Conejo Creek Equestrian Center for the city of Thousand Oaks. And we've worked with her for many years, and she said she'd help us in any way she could, suggesting that we get grants to help the rehab costs. And we do appreciate the time and effort the Parks District staff has already invested in this project, and we've had meetings with them several times. And they have further information on most of this. And I just want to thank you for your time and consideration in funding this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker card I have is Sherry Valdivia from the ETI 118.
Good evening, board. I'm Sherry Valdivia of ETI Corral 118 in Simi Valley. We are a horse show organization in Simi for 30 years, and we've been showing at that arena. I'd like to say I'm a homeowner and resident of Simi Valley for over 30 years. My family came here sooner than I, over 40 years ago. We are all equestrians and came here for the same reason many other Simi Valley equestrian residents have chosen Simi Valley as their home. Simi has significant equestrian residents and neighborhoods from Cooner to Madera and on down Tierra Hada. Many of those neighborhoods have private trails. In addition, Simi has mountain trails and boarding facilities with some equestrian amenities. Not all can afford to live in equestrian neighborhoods, therefore many have to board their horses. Simi Valley having equestrian neighborhoods, local trails for trail riding, Simi's own arena for leisure or competition use, a great family environment community encouraged and drew families here. The Equestrian Center, which was built over 30 years ago, about 1990, I believe the last significant maintained care ended in 2008 and has declined since to none. ETI 118 has shown there over 30 years. We have struggled with the poor conditions many of those years in hopes the Parks District would soon get around to its maintenance and safety. After much time and informal requests, we could no longer hold our shows in Simi at the Arroyo Simi Equestrian Center and had to move our business in 2017 out of the area for the safety of riders and their loved horses. Just like the other sports and interests we have here in Simi Valley, we feel we are an equally important sports interest in the community for our families, social interest, and sports competitions. We have several organizations who have run their equestrian clubs at the Arroyo Simi Equestrian Center through the many years. We would like to come back to our home base arena where we live and bring in our businesses back with us to Simi Valley. We hope the Park District Board understands the importance of the arena and the equestrian community and lifestyle. Help us not to lose any more equestrian facilities and activities. ETI 118 is in favor of option 3B, and we are in support with the Simi Paint Club organization. Our horse shows are primarily for families and children from ages 5 to people up to 90s. We just had our last horse show and it was over 95 participants that came and all were family and children. And we had children with disabilities. And they even got to go home with buckles. So it was a big, big fun day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any board questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker card I have is from Brian Trushinsky from Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council.
Good evening, Chair Gray, Board Directors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Trushinsky. I am a member of the Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council. I'm also the Oak Park representative on your planning committee. This evening, first of all, thank you for inviting us. We appreciate being a stakeholder and participating. We have come up with some ideas for environmental and to recreation for Oak Park. By the time we received the notice for this meeting, it was 2 days before our scheduled MAC meeting. So we weren't able to agendize it. So from a Brown Act point of view, we couldn't discuss it. And so we will be taking these points tonight to our MAC meeting on the 30th to discuss and ratify them. So what you're hearing tonight is draft and not officially the MAC positions. Okay, just so we know. Quite a lot has been said tonight about pickleball. We support pickleball as well. We'd like to see at least 4 to 6 courts dedicated in Oak Park, and I think everyone has said enough so on that point, so I won't
To just clarify, converting tennis courts to pickleball?
That would be ideal too. Anything we can get a combination, but 4 to 6 courts would be.
I think I was going to ask the same question, just so you understand. Are you okay with taking courts that are tennis courts or dual purpose courts and making them exclusively pickleball courts? That's the question.
We would like to explore that with you. Okay. There is existing exercise equipment on Medea Creek. It has been disassembled because of COVID. We're finished with COVID. It would be good to refurbish it. Some of the equipment is overgrown by vegetation. We may need to looking at relocating it to another spot or maybe into a different park area, in addition to getting some children's exercise equipment along the creek as well, which would be great. From an environmental point of view, the Oak Park Lagoon, this is world class. This is just a top-notch project, and we are really excited to see it opening probably in June. What we would really like to have is, I don't think that we would call them kiosks like we talked about tonight, but maybe it was option 3 signage, environmental signage, that highlights the benefits of this park, because I think it gets more experience. The ecological improvement of Medea Creek and the Malibu watershed, the wildlife that are going to be using the lagoon area, the importance of protecting the pond from degradation as well. The other thing we would like to look at is on Medea Creek from Oak Hills Drive down. Vegetation is removed annually by Ventura County Watershed Protection District for flood storage purposes to protect the properties from the 1% annual chance flood. We'd like to be able to suggest that the district work with the Watershed Protection District looking at some on-site additional storage on Medea Creek so that we can protect the vegetation that's being lost on the creek every year. Egrets, wildlife, amphibians, habitats being lost on an annual basis. And finally, the tributary, the Medea Creek tributary that flows under the road just above the driveway entrance to the Oak Canyon Community Park. It was impacted by the Woolsey fire. There's still a lot of sediment there. Creek banks should be stabilized and restored. This is a great project for community groups. So, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is from Stacy Vanderschaft. It just says budget.
Hello, I'm aware that there are plans currently in place for the improvements on the Arroyo Greenway. However, and that the budgeting is technically in place. However, I just wanted to remind the board as to why the bike path is such a unique and essential feature to Simi Valley. Namely, the population density in Simi Valley is growing at a very rapid rate. And with that comes the congestion on the roadways. And while we have bike lanes in place on the roadways, it's not necessarily the safest place for bikers to be, especially with the increase in car traffic. The bike path is, in reality, probably the safest place for bikers and for runners and walkers to be, because it is almost entirely away from the car traffic. The most dangerous places for runners and for bikers are the driveways in and out of shopping centers and schools, and also the intersections. Those are the places where collisions between cars and bikers and pedestrians occur the most. So the bike path really does provide the safest alternative for people who are trying to bike or walk or run or just hang out with their families. And the other thing that I've noticed especially over the past year, now that COVID is over and road races are they're starting to happen again, is that the bike path really does provide a great incentive for companies that do the road races and also for local organizations who are seeking to use 5Ks or 10Ks or half marathons as a fundraising mechanism. And the reason is because blocking off roads is way more expensive than just blocking off certain intersections. And the bike path really provides a very unique, cheap alternative to shutting down complete roadways. Last year was the very first 13 Souls of Kabul run in memory of the 13 soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan. And that was almost entirely conducted on the bike path, and it was a huge success. And they plan on doing it again this year, and they are going to utilize the bike path because it doesn't require shutting down in complete areas of roadways. So I just wanted to remind you that the bike path is very essential to the community, and I hope that the plans to improve it are moved forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Linda Bosley from the Simi Valley Historical Society.
Good evening. Right there. I want to thank the board for their support in maintaining the history of Simi Valley through capital improvement projects, such as the replacement of the adobe roof on one of the oldest adobe structures in the state of California. The Simi Valley Historical Society and the Park District meet monthly at a liaison meeting to review our maintenance projects and work in cooperation. For those board members who don't know, currently the Simi Valley Historical Society is painting the library, first library in Ventura County that's on the property. And some of our colleagues are at a city meeting right now. We put in a grant for $25,000 for digital scanning equipment and that kind of thing. I want to thank the Park District for firming up the Prince Pal House so we can move forward with the interior renovations. The tree planting, of course, for our beloved pepper tree has been replaced, and the replacement of the gazebo roof. Very important, especially to our rentals at the park. The projects this year that we're looking forward to, of course, are the restoration of the adobe wall and the Prince Pal House. We're able now to move forward on the interior renovation plans. The only thing I would like to be sure that the Park District does not forget on their budget, because we worked with you to plan in the 5-year plan, is another roof. And that is on the Simi store. The Simi store is a historical structure. It was a garage that sat on the Stratton property on LA Avenue. And currently the roof, the eaves, and the fascia are deteriorating. In 2019, Robert Mendez recommended that the roof be replaced in the next 5 years. Well, we are there. And I would appreciate it if you guys could keep that on the budget for this coming year. And are there any questions for me? I know I see everybody regularly, so I don't know if there is. We good? Okay, thank you, everybody. And I feel kind of weird. I'm probably my only non-sports person here today. Thank you.
Thank you. The final speaker card I have is Chris Darwin from the Rancho Simi Foundation.
Hello, my name is Chris Darwin. I'm president of the Rancho Simi Foundation. We operate the Santa Susana Railroad Depot and Museum, which is located at the foot of the old Santa Susana Pass Road where it joins Cooner Drive. It's a 120-year-old building that is visited every year by nearly 4,000 people, and it's County Historical Landmark number 29. It is in need of paint, and this is a major project that before COVID, I understand there was $45,000 budgeted for painting and prep work, but no repair work. And I talked to Mr. Nakaoka here last summer. He said he had a budget of around $125,000 for that, and hopefully we can find something in between. But we would like to see that project move ahead. I know the district has been doing some repair work, and there's a little more repair work that needs to be done, but presumably they're getting ready to get us painted. The second thing that I would request is that, I know it came to the attention of the board here last summer, that there's no air conditioning in the community room or the museum itself, just the model railroad layout. And it would be very advantageous, I would think, to go ahead and get that done. And again, I talked to Mr. Nakaoka about that. he said he needed to get some proposals for, a system, what is needed and what the cost is and everything, and I just, I don't know where that stands, but I hope that we're moving ahead on it. So that's basically what I have for you. Any questions?
I know it's a foundation and a nonprofit, but for like the AC system, was the request for the park district to fund the whole thing or to fund part of it?
Would be for the whole thing. I mean, the district owns the building and maintains it and so forth. I would note that that was originally, I believe, intended as a community room. There's very little use of it made, except on the weekends people go in there and sit, when we're open for public hours. But people inquire about it, and I'm told that as soon as we tell them that there's no air conditioning in there, they lose interest. It should be a usable facility, if it had that proper air conditioning. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, I almost forgot, is that the district owns the building and maintains the building, and the foundation owns the displays and so forth around the building. And we've got a number of railroad semaphore signals, wigwags, railroad crossing gates. There's an order board and all of this. These things have been up there for close to 20 years now, and they're in need of paint. The foundation has been willing to pay for the painting of these signals and so forth. We got a bid about a year ago for $11,000 to paint them, and I'm sure it's going to cost more than that now. But when the district does the paint work, we would like to have a separate line item with the same contractor, that the foundation could pay for the painting of the signals and the displays outside at the same time as the building is being painted. It'd be a more efficient way to do it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make public comment, or anybody in the audience who would like to make public comment on this item?
Should we exit?
Can we get that, can we get that back on?
Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to make public comment?
All right, I am not seeing anybody, and I'm not seeing anybody in the room approach the podium who didn't fill out a speaker card. So I would say that is public input closed, and we've concluded that. Thank you, everybody who has come and input information and shared their experience and their requests. At this time, I'm going to call a quick 3-minute recess until we go to board discussion.
How about 5 minutes?
We will do a 5-minute recess, and we will return at 9:02. Thank you.
And we will be discussing all these things. Yeah.
We are resuming our meeting
Progress.
at 9:06, where we will now do board discussion about the item 9A and the budget itself.
Alex, if you could you please put up the PowerPoint so we can reference that as it may come up? Thank you.
My staff went down to one person.
For the first policy question before you is regarding the 23-24 appropriated projects and whether or not the board would like to make any changes to this list.
Director O'Brien, did you want to start?
No, I'm just sort of thinking out loud. I don't really want to make changes to this.
There's a couple of things I feel is really important we should do, one of them being district-wide deferred. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. One thing I think we really need to pay attention to is the deferred maintenance that is worrying me. That would be my thing. And I like the idea of the wildfire resiliency vegetation removal grant. Those are the two things.
Okay, thank you.
Keep out at me.
Vice Chair Friend, did you want to?
We heard a lot tonight. Well, everybody has their wish list, and everybody has a lot of participants. And but I hope they understand that we have limitations, and there are certain projects which I gotta get closer here. I've been directed. Certain projects that are priorities to me. One is this activity center, getting it useful for the public since we made a major investment in it. Also the completion of Rancho Santa Susana Park. We have talked about that for years, and it's finally time and energy and money has been spent so far in the design, getting it ready, and for completion. On the capital improvement budget projects, there isn't anything here that I would remove. We've been over this, the irrigation system at the golf course has been needed for years, and we're finally doing that. But I also think there are some things we need to find ways to do, and I know that's not an easy task, but I'm very much committed to helping the equestrian people. That arena has been 30 years. We haven't done anything really. There's a lot of equestrian people in this town, a lot of young people. It's very healthy. And I would like to see us find a way to do 3B. I think that we have, as a district, an obligation to that group of people, which we haven't provided. And so there are other things which would be wonderful if we could do all of the pickleball, but that is something that I think is going to have to be handled on a maybe separate basis when we look at that at some time in the future. But that's my feeling about our projects. Thank you.
Director Humble?
Okay, first a couple preliminary comments. I'm glad I suggested this format. I think it's great that we had everyone back to remind us of and update us on the different potential capital projects that we had. You know, I wish it would have gone a little faster, but we had a lot of parties, and that's important to know. And I'm not sure they realize maybe we'd be discussing this right now. That's the only other improvement maybe we can make in the future, because we pretty much lost most of them. So, but I think we can let them know that they can watch this back. And, we obviously have contact information for them. Before I get to my priorities, I do want to say, along the lines of what Kate said, I asked a lot of questions about district-wide deferred maintenance because I wanted everybody who was here and had their separate interests to understand the importance of that. It goes without saying that we have to do that. That goes without saying, but I thought that was an excellent way to illustrate some of the things that do need to be done on an ongoing basis. In terms of my priorities, and I look at this and I understand that we have money for a lot of this, a lot of these things, and hopefully down the road we have money for all of it. But there's no guarantee of that, and so the importance here to me is to list the priorities and the things we make sure we want to get done. We want to get done as soon as possible. So for me, first of all, and I'm sure we're going to get there, but for the past couple of years, we've had the Arroyo Simi Greenway come to us. We've got grant money for it. We've had citizen involvement, and we've worked with the city. And I hope we're still on track to have that done by the end of the year. And I think that would be That would be an ideal goal for phase 4 between Sequoia and Tahoe. So that'd be the first thing that I'd mention. The second thing that I would mention, and I would echo Director Freeman on this one, is the activity center, the recreation area. I believe actually, and I didn't mention it, I was going to, but our meeting last week, that date, I believe, was the 5-year anniversary of the opening of the activity center. And I know these things happen, but I know initially I was told maybe 2023 and then 2024 we'd have the recreation area open. I realize now it looks like it's going into 2025, but I really think we should try to make 2 years from now a hard deadline to get that done, because we'll be 7 years out from when we open the activity center.
I think we're closer than that.
Well, we're not, but I've kind of gotten an update on that. But I think we are looking at early 2025. Is that right, Wayne? Yeah. And I hope we can stick to that and not have it drag out any further than that, because again, as I was trying to say, that would be the 7-year mark, and I don't think it would be a good look if it went any longer than that. The importance of it, obviously, is it brings so many activities in one location. It's good for our residents, it's good for families, it's good for our staff and our programming. And so that is that is way up there on my list as well. The third thing I want to mention, and it's really not an area of special interest, but it's so important to our community in the summer, is definitely that we keep up with keeping the pool, the community pool, and the surrounding things there in shape. And I do get worried about that. I don't think we ever want to lose the summer without that pool and the full use of that pool. It's the only one we've got, and it's extremely popular. And so I think that's something that shouldn't get lost. And I trust Wayne and our staff to know what's important in terms of the order of getting that done. So then there are the things that are not on that list, but for me belong on that list and probably ahead of some of the items that are on that list, and that's from the community requests. And there are 3 in particular that I want to mention. The most obvious one is the BMX track. The BMX community has been without that track now for 4+ years, and we made some asks of them that initially didn't take place, but they came in here a year ago and they presented way beyond what we asked. So they've been without a track for 4 years. They've gone beyond what we've asked, and more than that, again, it's one of those things that does have its peaks and valleys, but right now it's something that is on an upward trajectory in terms of popularity. And we need to be focusing on that when we prioritize items. We need to focus on the things that people want to do. We have to understand we're here for our residents, and it is becoming enormously popular again. So we need to try to convince the city to help us out with the land so we can get going with our part of that. It's so important for the community, and other than owing our residents, I never think that we owe anybody anything. But if I ever went that far, and I'm not going to go that far, but if I ever did, the closest I'd come to it is the BMX people. Because they are the one group of the many good things that came from the sale of the Sycamore property and obtaining the activity center. The one group that truly got gypped was the BMX community. And so we really need to do something about that. The second thing that needs to shoot up the list and the current list is lighting at our existing fields. I know Director Freeman mentioned the equestrian center, however long it's been there. You heard from one softball group that has over 800 participants. We have soccer fields that get used. These are widely used fields, and the lighting at that, in the best case scenarios, at 3 of the community parks is about 30 years old. You can't see well there at night. It isn't up to standards, and there are safety issues with the lighting, that needs to shoot way up the list. Those are existing fields. That's not talking about building anything new. That's not talking about investing money in something new. Those are existing fields that are widely used by a lot of people. And then I'll just add, the Rancho Simi situation, it's like 50-year-old lighting there. So that needs to shoot way up the priority list. And then the third thing, and it just seems like we do these little fixes that pushes this third one down the road and doesn't seem to fully acknowledge the situation. But we need to, and I'd like to do it in the least expensive way that we can realistically, but we need more pickleball courts, and that's whether it's in Simi Valley or Oak Park. We hear this over and over again, and we hear this over and over again because we haven't solved the problem. Everybody knows this by now, but I grew up playing tennis. I had a great love for it, but it's, relatively speaking, tennis has faded and pickleball continues to explode. It was exploding when I first came on this board, and it just continues. It's just exponential year by year. And if we're really looking at the needs of residents, if we're really looking at what the residents want, they want a chance, a better opportunity to play pickleball. And obviously, the least expensive way to do that is to convert some more tennis courts into pickleball courts. And that's something we need to do sooner rather than later. The problem isn't going to go away. The meetings where you have some loud tennis people and 80% of the room filled with, at least 80% of the room filled with pickleball people aren't going to go away until we solve that problem. So that needs to shoot way up the list. And I'll just have a couple more comments. I think Rancho Santa Susana is important, but when you think about the fact that the recreation area at the activity center is going to wind up costing us about $3 million, and that doing the entire plan for Rancho Santa Susana is going to cost $7 million, that's really eye-opening, and it's something that you have to look at. I use this as an example, and because it's the one that made the most sense to me, both dollar-wise and in terms of utility. But I use this as an example to maybe divide the next phase into a couple parts at Rancho Santa Susana. You can get the money for the lighting for existing fields if you hold off, if you do Rancho Santa Susana, but you hold off on adding additional lighting there, and you hold off on surfacing the dirt parking area. You can do everything else, and you have the money to do the existing lighting. And when you have existing fields like we do, and they're substandard in terms of the lighting, we need to take care of those. Those should be a priority. I want to see it all get done, and maybe it can all get done. But when we're prioritizing, for me, that still has priority, and you can still do everything at Rancho Santa Susana, including adding fields, including the play area, including the sand volleyball, including the things that have to be done, the irrigation, and the situation over on Leeds. You can take care of all that and still have money left over from that to do the existing lighting, which is so crucial right now, because those are things that are being used. Those are things that we're living with right now, and where people are using those fields. My comment on equestrian would be this: I obviously, if we're going to spend money on it, Plan 3B seems to be the one to go with. But in terms of priorities, I can't prioritize it ahead of these other things that we've been talking about. You've got 2,000 to 3,000 participants in our community playing soccer. You've got at least 800 that we know of playing softball. You've got people for years that have been waiting to play pickleball more than they should have to wait to play pickleball. And so I want to see that get done. I want to keep that on our radar. But if we're prioritizing in terms of money and in terms of time, taking care of these other items is just more important. So I don't want to take it off the radar, but there's no way that it should wind up in terms of our community usage, in terms of our need, in terms of how long people have been waiting for things. There's no way I can prioritize it ahead of the other things that I've mentioned.
Director Denton?
Ed, thank you for suggesting this format. I like that the community understands it's not a project doesn't have validity, but up against all of the projects and priorities. And I thought they had an opportunity to see that tonight with the presentation and seeing the comments from everybody else. So good job on that. If we're able to do most of the things on this, I think this would transform our community. When I was young and did play Viking football there, second string left tackle. This is a great place to raise a family, and it's getting harder. So I see this as a part of a new deal for families with more to do and more access. As far as my priorities go, building the bike park. At this point, I feel people are losing hope in its possibility, but the BMX community has done what we've asked for with a detailed business plan. So I would like to see that happen. For Rancho Santa Susana, we're going to add fields for community events, for soccer, for flag football, and sand volleyball. So that's a lot of sports right there. But if the parking lot is not done, and that saves us money so we can get more of this done, especially as costs continue to increase, the parking lot will continue to cause people to have to wash their cars more, and it's not going to be as luxurious, but it meets the needs of athletes. So if that's a way to meet the budget, I'm open to that. As far as the next on mine is the activity center, and the activity center, as planned, will have a few pickleball courts for use at some times. Is that still correct?
Correct.
So that moves us towards our goal of adding more pickleball. And then as far as, this is the harder questions, like what's less important than, everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So for me, the pool building, not the equipment like the pump, obviously that's safety, that's basic. Not the decking, but just on our long-term plan, the pool building. I agree it's old, it's not in good condition, but with a new agreement with the school district, with the portable buildings, it relieves a little bit of the pressure to redo the pool building. The equestrian center, I'm still open to it, but Dan, for Senior Youth Baseball, what are their fees like that they pay to us annually, like the total amount?
I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 10,000, and then they've got a couple, I think it's about 14 in total.
Roughly. So I know that they spread that out among a lot more participants, and I get that math. But in that agreement, Senior Youth Baseball does a lot of maintenance, and the equestrian community agreed to do maintenance. But on top of that, that means our youth sports are being asked to pay on top of their agreement. So I would like to see as a part of that agreement, acknowledgement that there's a fee that they would pay. Now, I'm not saying it could be comparable if we need to subsidize it, but getting us closer to that. So there's a little bit more quality in that. One of the reasons is just the basic mechanics. If they just have to do the maintenance, they'll do the maintenance, I trust them. But if they have a fee they need to reach, they'll also be encouraged to get more participants involved, which meets us, our formula for how many participants to total cost. So I'd like to see some thought put into that.
I forgot to mention it just briefly. I want to echo what Director Dennard said on that. I meant to mention the one thing that we also, before we, whatever the timing is, that we would put more money into the equestrian center. I would echo that the operational agreement needs a lot of work, and I think falls short right now.
The lighting on the softball fields, I agree that's a safety issue. The lights are older, and there's a lot of participants, so I see the value in that. For the kiosk, it's a smaller budget item, but it helps us because it's district-wide. The kiosks, some of them are in pretty bad shape. And it also shows our commitment to open space as we try to meet the 30 by 30 initiative and asking for funding for open space, that we show we're serious about our open space and we're celebrating it. So I'd like to see that in there. For pickleball, I agree that we need to expand pickleball, but there's multiple ways to do that, so I would like us to put some thought into that. I know we've already discussed lights at Sinaloa, and one reason we haven't done it is the cost, and that's a fair argument. The second reason is we're hesitant to invest on property that's not our own. And I see that as a valid argument, but if that's the most efficient way and least expensive way to dramatically expand pickleball courts, then that might be the least bad way of doing it. But as part of the exploration at Rancho Tabo Community Park, it's not just dual striping them, but it'd be adding to the tennis courts, the fourth court, not just permanently converting them, but expanding, taking down the fence and moving it, and expanding the cement so one tennis court doesn't become 2 pickleball courts, but one tennis court becomes 4 pickleball courts. But that would be a significant budget item, possibly, to do that. That said, it would add 2 temporary courts that are sometimes used to 4 permanent courts. So the last part is, I know that we'll have a separate conversation, and I respect all my board members and their opinions, and we've listened to our input from each other. But when we're putting together a budget, I'm committed to, when we talk about the assessment, knowing that that's a part of how we fund that year to year. I know those aren't all capital projects, but that also deals with our ongoing budget. So that's it for me.
So can I ask to clarify? So what you're suggesting at Rancho Santa Su is we do everything but the parking lot, the new parking lot?
Which one of us?
Director Avila? I wasn't clear.
So I'm suggesting that eventually we do the whole plan. But in terms of priorities, I was suggesting that we do it in 2 parts, and I would do everything, certainly except the parking lot. And secondarily, if we needed the money, I would hold off on putting additional lighting there until we have improved the lighting at our other fields. Because if you do that, you're still adding more fields, you're still adding the other amenities, you're taking care of the irrigation, and you're taking care of the other things that we're required to do, such as the Weed Street situation. But you're saving a lot of money that can be used to take care of existing lighting at other fields.
Well, I think the plan was to include lighting, so there could be tournaments and the whole facility could be used more efficiently by more groups at more times.
You asked me a question, that's my answer.
Well,
I think that the lowest priority at Rancho Santa Susana is the parking. The next lowest is new lighting until we take care of existing lighting at other fields. That's the answer to your question.
For my comments, I'll say I like the format a lot. It is unfortunate with the timing of the break that we lost a lot of our folks in attendance, but thank you to those who are still here. And thanks to Director Avila, and thank you to the staff for I know that took extra work ahead of time and in this meeting, but that is appreciated. I think that is helpful both to view the big picture, but share that with our community partners. For my areas of focus, I would say one of the main things that I want to emphasize is whether it's 3.2 million in reserve, but whatever the reserve is, to make sure these current capital projects that are on the list get done, whether that be a 3%, 3.2 million, or whatever it does. I would strongly support keeping that in reserve to make sure we can get these things done rather than split it amongst a bunch of projects and never finishing anything or having that perpetual list. With that in mind, my top 3 priorities are very similar to all that have been listed so far. My top 3 are the activity center, Rancho Santa Susana, and the pool. I think money needs to go to make sure that gets done. And then secondary levels of importance, kind of the second tier I would have would be VMX, solutions for pickleball, and lighting in parks. And then beyond that, I would include in kind of a third tier would be the equestrian 3B along with the kiosk. So I don't think there's anything necessarily new there, but those would be my priorities and how I would break down what needs to get done and what would be kind of.
Josh, can you clarify by, when you said pool, is this the pool decking, pool building?
As a whole, the pool structure, the pool itself and the building, the facility itself is a priority in my eyes. As Director Avila, and I think you also added on there, I think those are facilities that are widely used, and I think the loss of them or the deterioration of those facilities are a whole communal loss. Obviously, there are other agreements we want to fulfill, but I think those are, I think if we let those fall away, I think those are disasters, where the other ones are unfortunately need to work on it do better. I think there's a difference there.
Dan, you probably could clarify that. Which pool projects, I know the decking we have to do.
Yeah.
The other parts, which ones were optional and which ones were caused the pool to close?
The decking is just the issue with the pool right now, and that's funded here in your budget. As a phase 2, we talked about the goal of replacing that building or not. We've talked to an architect preliminary, and one says we need to tear it down and restart versus rehabbing it. So we'll be having more discussions about that. But really, the second phase of the project is getting the building current. It's 50, like you said, it's 50 years old. It's going to be there for another 50 years. So the other component of that would be to add, call it a phase 3, which is probably a lower priority, is to maybe add an amenity there. All it is a large adult pool right now. If you had a little kiddie pool there or something of the sort, it'd probably get used a lot more. But if there's 3 components, it's the deck, it's replacing the building or refurbishing the building, and then adding an amenity. And we don't have money for 2 or 3 right now.
If we don't do anything to the building for a while, that wouldn't cause the pool to close though?
No. It's just something we need to invest in to secure the future of the pool for many years to come.
I have a few suggestions. Looking at this again, I see several things here that don't look like they're hazardous, or they don't look like they're going to cost us a humongous amount of lost revenue. The partition walls, the clubhouse kitchen design at the golf course, parking lot resurfacing. If we were to just defer those a little bit, and then of course that'll add to our district-wide deferred maintenance list, which is the one I think we shouldn't be putting off. But
if I could, Kate, the partition walls are broken. So between where we split the community room or the NPR into 2 rooms for 2 rental spaces, that's broken. So
what happened? How did it break?
Just old use, and the wheels are broken, and I don't know. Laura has told me about it, but they're literally broken and don't work. Right. The golf course stuff is really a kind of a side conversation because it's that's a different funding source, the golf course stuff. I mean, you can mix and match the 2, but and then the parking lots, if you look at the Sonoma golf course parking lot right now, we've let it go way too long. The problem is if you don't seal it, then you've got to replace the whole thing, like Wade said. So these are just kind of sealing them. So if you don't do the sealing, then 3, 4, 5 years from now, it's going to cost you a lot more if you don't just do the sealing. So that's
why our maintenance budget is important, because it's true for everything that we have.
So, board, if I could, I'm just going to kind of start a conversation on where we can head with this. It sounds like we're generally on the same place for the most part, but for maybe equestrian potentially. So I'll hold that separately. Part of our challenge is, all of us, is I don't know how much this list is going to cost at the end of the day. So if you were to tell me we're closer to these numbers at the end of the day, then I can tell you we might be able to do all of the lights. If we're more near this number, then it gets a little tighter when we're talking about pickleball and doing all of the lights in the field. I think I could get you, I think I could get the board to BMX. I think I could get you to doing the lights at Rancho Santa Su and the lights at Duck Pond. I might hold off the lights at Tapo and Madera a little bit as a phase 2 on the lighting, but I think we could get to those two. BMX obviously, and then.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You could get to all the lighting though if you, let's just
Yeah.
go with, I want to go with Director Freeman's
Yeah.
initial question to me. If you did everything at Rancho Santa Sue, except, let's say you even did the new lighting
Yeah.
at Rancho Santa Sue, everything but surfacing the dirt parking lot, you could get to all the lighting then?
Likely, yes. Yeah, or at very close. That my concern with the lighting on the new soccer fields is we get so much more because we get 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock usage. And then, you know, shorter than that at times, but then we get exponential use with lights.
But that's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you did everything but the resurface, but not even resurface, if you did everything but surfacing the dirt parking lot,
Yeah.
Rancho Santa Sue, then you could get to doing all of the field lighting.
Yeah. I would also like to add, by the time that project actually goes to construction, we've got other grant opportunities that are out there already. I just put some into our legislators last week. So by the time you actually got to construction of that, there may be some more funding available at that time. So point in time now, it's hard to get to all of that, but you know, if things go our way, like we've been successful lately, by the time we get to the actual project, we may be able to decide that we can do it or maybe not. And what I'm hearing is that lights in the other parks are a higher priority than the parking lot, at least from Ed. So, but yes, we could probably make that happen.
So what you're saying is that if we went that route, we could then know that we're doing the lights at all the other parks, and in a worst case scenario, we could do everything except the parking at Rancho Santa Sue, but there's a really good chance we'd even be able to do that.
With the caveat of how much this is going to cost us at the end of the day. So we can plan on that financially and in terms of running the math and the revenue and all of that stuff, we can put it in there. You know, obviously this stuff's going to take us another 2, 3, 4 years to get done. So a lot can happen in 2 or 3 or 4 years. So.
But not being hit by a softball you can't see versus getting a car dirty in a dirt parking lot, or that's what you're weighing.
I think what is important is I would like some direction tonight is we're getting close on the design and getting the final of Rancho Santa Sue. I would like an up or down on the 1.1 million for replacing the lights at Rancho Santa Sue. I will bring you a budget back with also the other lights funded, right? Because we're getting closer, we kind of need to decide if we're going to roll those other lights into that project or not.
How close are we to Rancho Santa Sue? It's designed, has it gone to the city for approval?
It's in plan check.
It is in plan check?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I need a kind of decision on the lights there. If we're in plan check, I need to add those lights to the plan check for that process, or for that particular project. That being said, from what I hear Ed saying is he'd be, we can do that as long as the other lights come back with a plan in your June 21st budget, preliminary budget. And we don't have to make this decision tonight, it's really June 21st. I just need to frame it and get it in there.
I would like to go back to something else. On the BMX, there's probably maybe 50 people that are participating from Simi Valley that are on BMX. It does bring outside people in, but if we're basing a decision on the number of people that are locally that use BMX, I don't think that's a good criteria, because the equestrian, there's many more people using the equestrian than the BMX. And they're willing, and we can have an arrangement for maintenance. So I don't know if...
I don't know where you're coming up with those numbers. I don't see how you're saying that equestrian...
I remember the number of people out there at the BMX track when the BMX was out there.
I do too.
The equestrian people have told us how many events they have and how many people could use the arena. And
but that's all speculative. There haven't been events at the equestrian center in a long time.
That's because of COVID.
The popularity of BMX is far kind of way past the popularity of equestrian.
I'm just saying there's a big difference in the cost. The BMX is going to be well over $1 million, right?
2.3 is the estimate now.
2.3 million, and I'm talking about 250,000 for the equestrian. And I mean, then we have a state-of-the-art. The BMX is important because it was there, and I agree we need to move forward on it. But I think the funding for that is a long way down. I mean, the need for funding by the time we get through a city agreement and by the time we get through a design agreement. I'm saying maybe something that will go in cost is my bet.
Yeah, I think it's night and day in terms of the importance of the BMX over the equestrian. I just totally see this issue completely different.
It's just a sport that people are enjoying. It's another segment of the population.
Well, with BMX, we don't even really have a place to put it yet. I mean, we sort of do, but not really, you know.
I
And
anticipate
Western Center is already there.
I anticipate we will.
Yeah, we probably will. But
Yeah, I think once they show up at the city council,
It's
meeting,
gonna
we're
be
on a
big.
roll at that.
It's a lot easier to build something when you have a place to put it. That's just my engineering background. It sounds like the equestrian center would also would be not only more people use it, more Simi Valley residents use it than BMX, but it's a lot quicker and cheaper to do. Am I right about that?
I think, and I'm not an expert in it, I haven't been out there, but BMX is used more frequently. It's used like 5 days a week.
Okay.
And versus the equestrian is not used as much, because theirs is more event focused, fewer times a year.
Okay.
So in terms, if you weren't to count people, but if you were to count times, how many times it's used,
Yeah.
BMX would be much higher than
We
equestrian.
should really need to count.
There may be about an equal number of kids, depending on.
Yeah, and I just want to make it
Yeah,
clear,
what you
I'm
really
not,
need
I'm not
is
agreeing with the premise
people hours.
that there's more people that do equestrian
Yeah, I'm
than
just
BMX.
saying.
I think that's flawed.
The
I don't agree with
BMX
that at all.
facility is more permanently,
Okay.
it's more routinely used, I will say, right? Would you agree, Zach?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you really need to look at is not number of people, but number of people times the hours, total hours.
Well, yeah, it's like
Hours.
if you have a little amphitheater, right? If you're using it one time a year and 2,000 people go, it's used once a year.
Yeah.
If it's used 20 times a year, the cost benefit of that and the use of it is
That's,
different.
okay, yeah.
So what I'm saying is the frequency of the use of the BMX track is more than the frequency of the use of the
Okay,
equestrian.
that does change.
From
the
what I
picture a little
understand.
bit.
And I still think we're overlooking that segment of the community, the equestrian people. There's a lot of equestrian people. We have an equestrian neighborhood, and we really haven't provided, I don't think, over the years, over 30 years. I've never seen anything in our budget, all the years I've been in here, for equestrian, ever.
Yeah, we haven't put much in BMX, or in
No.
equestrian in a number of years.
I'm open to persuasion on the equestrian center. I just wanted to see the agreement look better before I make a decision. Because if we're asking youth sports to contribute money to the park district beyond the volunteers that they already do, I think it would be fair to ask the same thing of the equestrian community. There's also a much smaller barrier to entry for BMX. You gotta have a bike. I know you could join a class and use somebody else's horse, but if someone lives in an equestrian community, like Bridle Path, I know that they'd also like it at the arena, but they have some of their own facilities already set up that are exclusive use. So I see the amount of riders at a BMX course is one part of it, and the second part is when we sold the previous property, whether it was a promise or implied or a fair attempt. I think fair attempt would be good. We're trying to replace what we had before, so I see it as trying to replace that.
So it sounds like the board still has a priority on BMX, correct? Sounds like we're not quite ready to make a decision yet on equestrian. At least Brian had said that. So you don't want to appropriate for equestrian this evening and say you see that operating agreement come back? Or a discussion of that occur?
I'd like to see an actual agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're good with this list, and it sounds like the next highest priority funding considered would be the sports field lighting. Do we all agree that the sports field lighting is the next highest priority that's not on this list? I know we talked about pickleball. I don't have a funding plan for pickleball yet. We can probably bring that back during the year and decide, you know, what we might want to do and how much that might cost. I can have that, if pickleball's a priority though, I can have it in, we can have it in our planning mind, so as, you know, we're looking at grants and revenues and things, we know that pickleball is right there with, is the lighting higher than?
I was suggesting bringing it back as a separate item.
Yeah.
Because there's more than one way to address the issue.
Let me ask, is lighting probably at this point, because it's existing and it's a safety issue, is that probably a tick higher than pickleball maybe, or?
I just, this is a matter of semantics, but just that, so I'm not adopting exactly what you said. I mean, it doesn't matter where, but I wouldn't just have lighting of the fields as the next highest item after that list. I'd probably have it higher than a lot of the things on the
Okay,
list.
fair enough.
Just so that it's clear. I think lighting the existing fields, which is a true safety consideration for widely used fields, is an extremely high priority.
I would concur with that. Anything like, and fixing the sidewalks, anything that's a tripping hazard too. Especially when you have dim lighting and tripping hazard, is, you know, a huge liability. And we don't want anyone being hurt on our property anyway, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I think my thought is just that the two are at different places, where like with lighting, we know what we need to do, we just need to locate the money. Whereas pickleball, we haven't made a policy decision on what that solution is. So I think we're just at, I think the two are, I wouldn't put, sorry.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, just one's a funding problem, and the other is we need to make a decision.
Okay.
So it's tough to say which one's a priority. We're just in different spots.
Okay. Does the board, I think I have enough information to bring you back revisions to this that reflect what I see as the board's priority, what I'm hearing, so for your June 21st meeting. Does the board agree that I should be reserving some funds that we have for possible cost increases here generally?
Yeah.
I think we need to do that.
That'd be a good idea.
Otherwise, right?
Dan, I think that's a smart choice, and the reason I suggested we call it construction cost updates is to make sure it's not that our staff did their math wrong. I know they did solid math, it's just inflation and increased costs as we go.
Okay.
I like that. I like update better than saying that we had. It's not a cost overrun. It's not that we didn't know those costs correctly a couple years ago, but some of these things were a couple years ago.
I'm not agreeing to whatever it is you just said. I'm reluctantly contemplating.
All right, are you guys okay with this list that's built in your budget? This is this kind of the capital outlay list.
These are just like little small projects that
These
are
are things that are broken or worn out or tired or
yeah, this is fine.
refrigerator, we have one that's broken, we need a new one.
Yeah.
Rec room floor, if you've looked at the tile, it's all cracked and stuff.
I want to see those mannequins though.
We got the new mannequins.
See, my concern is we're adding more, and we still have things that need to be made, you know, the maintenance on what we have.
This is
So-
generally, this is all replacement stuff.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
This is not
Yeah.
adding new, this is replacement
Well,
for the most part, I believe.
No, it looks like.
Just to clarify, this isn't stuff you're adding, this is stuff you already have.
This is proposed in the budget. So you got the capital projects, which are the larger ones, and then this is a smaller list of stuff that the staff and I have talked about and we've included in this budget.
Zach, you might know, I saw that list and I don't see it on there, but at the Aqua Track, if it's not in this budget, there's not a current plan to replace it or expand it, is there? I'm talking about the obstacle course at the pool.
We try to build in a little bit of money for equipment upgrades. I don't know that we have a big piece budgeted this year, but we do have some money in the supplies line. Should we make, have some savings at the end of the year, we try to purchase some of those things to add it on the track out there.
So not for this year, because that looks like a solid budget and was put together well, but if we need more obstacle course stuff in the future, I'd be open to seeing that in there.
Yeah, this year we really focused on lane lines, some of the infrastructure stuff that we felt was a higher priority, but yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
I did want to note, it's on my list, the irrigation project, we're getting close to a final design number. I'm expecting that number to be revised, likely upward, by the time it comes back on June 21st, just so you know. That funding comes out of the Gulf Fund, different than the capital and general funds.
I have a question. Is there any potential of using Apollo again for the football?
Well, that's part of the plan with, if we get the field expansion with lights at Santa Sue, that frees up, that we can move soccer, and then we have lighted fields for football at Apollo. I can't necessarily say they'll get it all of the time, but it would, it just increases our green space for football, flag football, and lacrosse. So that's kind of the plan, is if we expand there with lights, then we still have Apollo if the school district's agreeable, and both of those locations have lights. So that helps meet the need of all four of those groups.
And we have dedicated groups there that might help us in the future to plan for that snack bar that was suggested earlier.
Okay. Disc golf is, I'm not going to go through, you guys know we have a plan there with the county to get something going there. Just looking at this, I think I have the direction I need on these. Good.
All looking for the same thing. It broke.
The battery died.
Hey Siri.
Good meeting.
What battery?
Clock.
I thought I was coming in the area.
Right, if you indulge me, I'll go through the operating budget real quick. Do we need a break or no? Shouldn't take too long. This is kind of what I'm going to be going through, and I'm going to be asking you at the end. And again, I want to note for the audience that all of these materials are within the staff report and attached to the report. The intent of the slides is just to kind of summarize what's in the report and make folks aware that what's in there. But generally, this is what we call our all funds summary. As you can see, what's proposed in the draft preliminary budget is all of the funds are balanced. The board's done a good job of being responsible and ensuring that we have balanced budgets. I know it's a priority of all of you, and all of the funds as proposed are balanced. This is just a summary of the general fund. This is in the budget packet. I just want to note that your total operating revenues are $22.4 million as proposed, and your total expenditures are $22.4 million as proposed. This just reflects the changes from the current year budget to next year. The preliminary budget on the ongoing column, it proposes ongoing costs. Last year it was 20.6. This year it includes 22.4 million. We're projecting revenue increases in these line items here. That's what gets you to the 20.6 to 22.4 in revenue. On the expenditure side of the budget, we've taken 1.2 and added it to what I call the base budget. That's basically have-to-do stuff. That's taking our budget from this year to next year, apples to apples. A lot cost increases. It's the things that we've been talking about. Insurance is going up about $268,000 between workers' comp and the other. Retirement costs, instructor fees have been increased by about $150,000 because we're opening more for COVID. So anyhow, the base budget's been adjusted by 1.2. In addition to the base budget, I'm recommending and looking for support from the board to reserve ongoing money for the opening of the activity center. I think it's important that we reserve that money now because revenues are pretty healthy right now because the economy has been good. I would like to reserve funds for the staffing for the activity center. There's a groundskeeper in here. I'm hopeful, depending on what happens here in the next month and a half, to bring back 2 proposed positions for planning and maintenance. As the board knows, we're growing in size, we've got more space, we're doing more special events, and we also have the funding for the deferred maintenance, which is those are the guys that do that work, whether it be overseeing contractors actually doing the work. So I have one here in the preliminary budget now, depending on things that happen in terms of revenue, new information on revenue, and other conversations that are occurring. I'm hopeful to bring back maybe 2 positions, and then I've got a continuation of the community outreach position proposed in the budget. So with your budget from last year, the changes that are proposed in the base budget plus the new items, that's where you get to your balanced budget. That's against your projected revenues as proposed for next year. Just real quickly, that would leave you with $11.9 million in reserve. We know most of that is for 30%. We have a cash flow issue with the, we need that for cash flow. This is the capital outlay that you already saw. It includes vehicles. And then this is the Oak Park reserve as proposed in your budget, which I would note is decreasing. These are your assessment funds. This is the assessment fund with no increase. It's a little bit out of balance, mainly because of possible employee increases. If we do no increase, then this $31,500 would have to be either cut out of the budget or absorbed in the general fund, which is possible. And this is what the budget looks like if you do entertain a CPI increase on June 7th or not. That is certainly up to the board. This is the same for Oak Park. Just has a projection here of no increase and over 3%. Staff has made no assumptions whatsoever on what the board's choice might be at this point. This is just a quick summary of the Fund 70, which is an older assessment fund in time. That's the map there. This is the golf fund, operating revenue at $4.7 million. If you add all of that, it's 4.7. Golf's doing well. I think we're expecting to end the year with about a $600,000 surplus, which then goes into the capital budget. Just a quick update on PERS. PERS had a really good year 2 years ago, and our funded status went up to 88%. And PERS had a really, really bad year the year after that. So it went back down to what it was before, 75%. So right now, for the PERS actuarial, we're 75% funded. That being said, if you look at the projections and what we're putting in, we're supposed to reach a curve, and then it's supposed to start coming back down if the economy does well and the PERS investments do well. We're doing fine there right now, but that's our funded status. Our OPEB is our retirement, our future retirement, healthcare retirement costs, $438 a month. That continues to go up a little bit. The liability does. We're doing that pay as you go, so we pay the benefit as we go. So the liability is there, but we're able to keep pace with the payments at this point. Just a few things to note. We still haven't seen a complete recovery on the rec side from COVID, particularly in the after-school clubs. The enrollment in the after-school clubs is still down from what it was pre-COVID. We're really hoping that after this summer going into next fall that we'll get back to what was 100%. I also think the ELOP program from the school district will help increase the enrollment in the clubs. But we're not quite there yet. Mentioned this many times, we are subject to cost increases and inflation just like everybody else. Water, insurance, cost of goods and services. The other thing we need to keep an eye on, as we all know as well, reading just generally, it does impact us, changes in the economy. Primarily what impacts us is a softening of the housing market, and we get some property tax growth. It won't, from what we all know, it's probably not going to be as that percentage increase that we've had the last 4, 5, 6 years. That's expected to slow down. So that's just a longer term thing we need to give some thought to. So my questions of you, and leading into the final preliminary budget adoption, are you okay with the base budget, that's not the new stuff, that's just your base budget, apples to apples? Is the board okay with those items, or do you want anything changed in that? Okay.
An operational budget, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just the operating, not the capital.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm impressed by the way we always balance it.
Yeah. Are you guys okay with the 3 new items, which is reserving money for the activity center staffing, a position or 2 that to be determined for maintenance, and then continuing the COP position?
Yes. Yes.
It's community outreach position.
Yeah.
That's item number 2.
Yeah, and for the community outreach position, I think it might be too early to tell all the benefits of it. You know, a person in the position needs time to grow into it. But eventually, part of our plan was that this would partially pay for itself by increasing.
Correct.
I would like to see that, not in the near future, but long-term, how that's going.
We're, as it relates to that, Brian, Zach's actually heading up a data project so we can start tracking our enrollment by class and by area. I would say that just anecdotally, I can see in the numbers where it is working, but again, our baseline was a little messed up because of COVID. But yes, we are on your same page and want to start tracking the enrollment and usage of our programs for sure. The assessment, I don't know if it's not really a question, it's just kind of, I put the assessment funds are in your budget. We still have a decision to make on the CPI and the rest of the assessment for that part. But it pretty much includes the same number of positions. It includes utility costs, which electricity, and it includes some janitorial in Oak Park. So nothing's changed there other than it's the same thing.
I'm just going to give a philosophical answer of no on that because the fact that the current budget proposal even remotely considers an increase before there is one, I just don't think is correct. So I'm just going to say no on that.
Okay. The golf fund, are you guys okay with taking a peek at the golf fund?
Dan, I apologize for the assessment. I see we could do no increase, and I could see we could do 3% CPI. Is that the top level that we could do?
Yes, that is the maximum this year. Yeah. So you can do anywhere, but well, you can do none at all for the whole thing, or you can do a CPI anywhere between 0 and 3, depending on.
I think 3 was $1.27 or something.
That'll be coming back on June 7th.
Yeah, I'll comment more on that on June 7th, but that's on top. That's on top of the fact that we're already getting $2 million from the assessment, $16 million from the state, all of which the taxpayers pay the bill for.
You guys are okay with the golf fund as put in the preliminary budget? And then the catch-all, do you guys have anything else that you'd like us to put in the budget or anything else to consider? I got direction on capital. Anything else on your mind when we bring it back on the 21st?
I think it looks, operational looks really good.
All right, staff, do you have any questions from this evening? Any clarifications you need? Good.
Dan, there's an event that we did in the past that I don't know the total budget numbers, so I would just like to consider it. We have stocked a pond at Rancho and did a fishing derby type thing. And
oh, yeah.
A community member brought that to my attention, asked that we do that again. I just wanted, I'm not saying to put it in there, but just to consider it.
Okay.
And I know we can do it at different levels of that, so.
You know, Wayne likes that one, so I'll talk to Wayne about it. We did, how long ago was it that we stopped that, Wayne?
7 years ago.
So it's been gone for 7 years. Wayne. So we'll talk about that, and I'll talk to Zach's team about it and see what we think, look at the costs and stuff. So I think that just next steps. We got the assessment on the 7th. We'll be bringing you this back on the 21st. We submit the assessment to the county, and then we have our 2 public hearings, and then we adopt the final budget later. We do that because then we have the benefit of the year-end close in June. So the district's always had a habit of doing a preliminary budget, which is really your budget. It's really a budget, and then you're adjusting your budget in September, October if needed. That's the way other agencies do it. We kind of do, we call it the prelim, because we start using it July 1st, and then we bring it back in September with any adjustments that are come about by seeing the year-end close. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. Good work, everyone. That will take us to item 10, written communications of note. Staff have any?
Staff has none.
Any board members with written communications of note? All right. That'll take us to item 11, reports by board members. Director Denner, would you like to lead us off?
We spent a long time tonight together, so I'm I'll do that next time.
Director Avila?
That's a month from now. It's gonna make it really long next time. Scary. I have no events. You know, I did spend a lot of time past month and past week on this workshop. I thank the board for an open mind of taking a new approach that I think worked really well, and hopefully this is the way we go in the future.
Vice Chair Fruit?
Yes, I worked the street fair for a couple hours, and it was great this year. Weather was perfect, and the staff did a great job setting up, and the kids all seemed to have fun, and it is fun to spin the wheel and see those little kids come up, and then have their parents come up too. So it was good.
Director O'Brien?
Yes, I also did the street fair on Saturday morning, and the weather was perfect. I've heard of Chamber of Commerce weather, and that's what we had, which all tied in because of the Chamber of Commerce fair. And during our break this evening, I talked to Brian Tershinsky from Oak Park, and he just said how impressed he was with how responsive staff is to everything, so I want to pass that on. So, and that's it.
Okay, I will do my best to keep mine as brief as possible. Excited for events later in May. Other than that, I would ask staff at some point in the future when it makes sense for an update on the Rancho Simi Keys situation and how that plan has worked or not worked now that we've had a year plus.
Chair, you'd like that to come back as a status? Are we just looking at how we're doing on that?
Yeah, as a status item and anything to change or not change.
Okay.
And then the only other one that I would, only other item I would bring up is the possibility for an analysis of a district-wide water resilience examination or plan or report on what we're doing well and what we could do better, and just an examination when there is time to what we could do better. You know, that there will be droughts, we know will continue and will get worse, and what we could do better as a park district while maintaining our green and active space.
Okay. Josh, I'm interested in that too, but the reason I'm speaking up is a part of that report, if there's any questions staff has, like, we could do this if you wanted us to, but it might not be popular. I'd like to see some of those options.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and obviously Director Denner has thoughts as well. But that would conclude my report, which takes us to item 12, report by district manager.
I just gave one last week, so I don't really have anything. I did want to note the gentleman from Little League will take a look at the concession and kind of see what the options are and what the costs are on that, and also on the picnic table. So,
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
If you don't mind speaking to staff afterwards,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
make that work.
But we'll do some outreach and work with him on their thoughts on that. So, I don't have anything else. And also, we don't have a need for closed session. We put it on here in the event we did, but we do not have anything for the board on that this evening.
Would like to hear that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What happened to the clock?
So the clock was at 6:30 when we started, and then when it got to 9:10, the clock said 8:45. So we took it down so it didn't confuse people.
I think they did it because the staff was trying to get me committed.
I'll put a new clock in the budget.
All right, if that concludes your report, and there is no need for closed session, that will take us to item 14, which is adjournment, which concludes our meeting this evening at 10:11 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a good month.